With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Championship window continues to remain open for drivers as we work our way towards the halfway point in our season. In the production challenge, it's on to an old British favorite here in the form of Oulton Park, a seemingly quaint circuit built on a family estate. The track is the definition of old school. With its narrow confines and flowing corners, we will have to see how these cars are able to make themselves around here. Will we see chaos like we saw at VIR, or will we see a more refined style of racing around this elegant English estate? Let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome to the PRL Monday Night Series, brought to you here live on RaceSpotTV. My name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth as always by Ewan O'Leary, with our director and producer Arjuna Kankapati working behind the scenes. And Ewan, this one is in your neck of the woods here as we take a look at the schedule. A little bit of a change from what we've seen, but these close confines going to be a good run for these drivers tonight.
Yeah, I think it's a circuit that's really going to suit these cars, actually. The GR86 and the MX-5 are going to go really well around here, and they're going to feel really nice to drive as well, to be honest, which should produce some good racing as well. It very much fits in with most of the schedule. We've got the likes of Suzuka West and Knockhill coming up and so on. That very much fits in with the style of cars that these are, and it's very different to the wide open expanses of Virginia 1 week ago.
Yeah, very much so. And as we take a look at the rest of the schedule, as you said, Suzuka West, another one across the sea in Knockhill. Then we come back to Summit Point and end the season in Mount Panorama. But let's go ahead and take a look at the championship standings. As we said, things starting to really separate out a little bit. Marlon McMullen now holding on to about a 15-point lead over Michael Lang there. That's really going to be the battle that we're keeping our eyes on. A very close battle, though, on 4P3 with Eric Harmon, Gerard Farewell, and Jeff Evans all within a point of each other. Farewell and Evans tied at 191 points. Andrew Sharp finds himself in 6th place with Kevin Berquist, Colton Lane, and Jimmy Richards both tied for 8th. And then Nathan Miller rounding out your top 10. But one of the things that makes this series so spectacular is the fact that we've got 2 makes of cars running. So let's take a look at the MX-5 standings as well. And that one, well, the championship window's closing a little bit more as Kevin Sandiego continues to try to extend his gap on the top of the field, holding on to a gap there of about 29 points over Roman Bykoff. Bykoff has to worry about Andrew Venaro and Zach Fuller coming up from behind him. Michael Chase, Kelly Greenhoe, Sean Bancroft all keeping this a competitive competition there as well. Then James Doherty holds on to 8th place with Austin Bartlett Chase a little bit ways back from him, and Edward Peltz rounding out your top 10. Also have the Teams Championship to go ahead and run you through, and these are going to be both for the GR86 and for the MX-5s. Danger Kitty leading the way in the MX-5 Team Championship over Alibi Racing. Unlimited Slip a fair ways back there. Really the battle between Danger Kitty and Alibi. Roberts Motorsports hold on to 4th place with Sperati Motorsports in 5th. And the GR86 Championship, well, it's also pretty close up at the top with Waterback Racing Overdrive having a 15-point advantage over Aerial Auto Art. Then it's Iceberg Racing, SRT Esports, and Waterback Racing Back Row, but they have been a very close competition there with SRT Esports. Well, folks, that is a little bit of the business done here. Practice is over, qualifying has just begun, but before we get to the on-track action, we'd like to thank our sponsors for tonight's event. First and foremost, Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Also like to thank Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceboxSimRacing.com and use the Precision 5 coupon code to get a 5% discount. Thanks as well to the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. We'd also like to thank Mecha Sim Hardware. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get yourself up to speed. Also like to thank Muradness. Muradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsports and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit muradness.com. And finally, we'd like to thank NinjaTrader. Better futures start now. Trade the world's future markets with NinjaTrader. Visit ninjatrader.com to access unlimited free trading simulation. Well, those are our sponsors taken care of for the day, and a massive, massive thank you to all of them for being part of our series here tonight. And as we said, qualifying underway here from this very, very narrow island layout, Ewan, and that basically means that we're not going to be running all the way down into Shell Oil's corner, making that hairpin a little bit closer and maybe keeping cars a little bit closer as well out on track.
It's certainly going to change things just a little bit about from what we normally see, but the character of this circuit very much remains the same. It's pretty quick, fairly medium to high speed corners around here, and that just makes it very interesting as far as I'm concerned, especially with these cars, as I say. So yeah, very much looking forward to this one and seeing what happens. But I think that just a little bit of a sooner hairpin there may even provide one more overtaking opportunity than you might otherwise get, because it's quite hard in towards that longer hairpin down at the bottom of the course, but it's maybe a bit easier when you're going for that shorter one.
Yeah, it certainly is, as we take a look at one of those Danger Kitty drivers there that we were talking about, and that is the man of the hour, Kevin Sandiego, as he's going to dive his way down into Hislops, getting ready for Knickerbrook. On board Sandiego, he has really been the story of this year. When we were racing back in the MX-5s, he was always up at the top of the charts, and it's been good to see him really be able to come alive this season and start to assert a little bit of dominance. But Ewan, one of the things that we really picked up on last time out at VIR was, frankly, one of the difficulties that Kevin has to deal with being one of the faster MX-5 drivers, and that's working his way back up through the field of some of the slower GR86 drivers.
Absolutely. It's a really difficult challenge because they split the fields now in this series, meaning that despite the fact that Sandiego will probably qualify inside the top 5 overall here, he will still start way back in the field. He just jumps up to second place there with that lap time, for example. Only 2 tenths behind Marlon McMullen, who is on top in the GR86s right now. So it really presents a problem for him, because that means that Sandiego basically is faster than, 15 of the GR86 runners, and they're all starting in front of him. So he really has trouble in the first half of the race, but it can make or break your race. For example, at VIR, he got through the traffic quite effectively and then was never really seen again by any of his rivals.
Yeah, exactly. Just able to put those cars in between himself and everybody else, and, well, that was kind of all she wrote as we watch Marlon McMullen, your points leader in the GR86 series, working his way through Old Hall, headed down the avenue into Cascades, potentially an overtaking opportunity as well. Here's Michael Chase, one of the drivers that's going to be hoping to close in on Kevin Sandiego. Chase, another stalwart here in the series. It's good to see him. He and his son, Austin Bartlett Chase, often competitors here. Austin finds himself a little bit farther down in the order at the moment, down in about 17th overall, and that is going to be 7th in the MX-5 category. So always a little bit of fun to have a family connection there, but it is certainly Chase the Elder that has been getting the best of that competition this year.
Certainly so. 5th place currently in the standings, as you say, for Chase, and Bartlett Chase down in 9th. But let's not forget that if these standings, by the way, at the start of the day looked a bit unfamiliar to you, the drop rounds have now been applied because we're halfway around the season. So it's probably about time we started applying them and started thinking about the championship just that little bit more. That's why we've got such a big lead for Kevin Sandiego right now, partly. But also things may just look a little bit different to what you might expect, especially in the GT4 Sprint Series. We'll see a bit later on, by the way. The standings looking very, very different there after drop rounds applied. So that's something to note and continue to note throughout the season. Because now basically Kevin Sandiego's poor round at Daytona has basically been wiped away, and suddenly he looks very dominant on top of the MX5 standings.
Yeah, he certainly does. And a driver who's been trying to claw his way up to that, well, really a team who's been trying to claw their way up to that, is the combination of Andrew Sharp and Gerard Farewell. Very easily recognizable there in those Rainbow Warrior machines. They currently hold on to 3rd and 4th in this qualifying session here with about 2.5 minutes left to go. That'll be helpful. Now, the one problem they're going to have is this isn't necessarily a track like we've seen. You mentioned Daytona earlier, where you really need to be working with the teammate. I've got to imagine it's going to be pretty hands-off here, pretty much gloves off, an all-out fight between the two, because you've got to really scrap here for track position. It's such a narrow track. You can't really be doing any sort of teammate maneuvers to try to use the draft or anything. It's kind of every man for himself.
Yeah, it is, and so we're not going to see any of those gains. I think those circuits are really behind us, maybe until we get to Bathurst, where we'll see obviously those long straights up on Mountain Straight and Comrade Straight towards the mountain and away from the mountain. But other than that, I think that's what the rest of this season is going to be about. It's very much about the tighter and twistier circuits. Where you can really fight these cars. But once again, I think this suits these cars a lot better, really. That seems to me to be what they suit just that little bit more. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how they battle around here, because this suits them a lot more, really, than the really long circuits we saw at the start of the season, like Daytona and Monza.
Yeah, I have to fully agree with you there. It's sort of among their natural habitat here at Oulton Park. As there you saw Marlon McMullen being good with his lap. I think it was his 4 laps done and dusted. He's going to pull his way on into pit lane. And as opposed to last week where we had those lap times that were upwards of nearly, I think, 3 or 4 minutes, we're looking at only about 1.5 minutes lap here as Dave Peterson comes across the line. Peterson, a stalwart in the Precision Racing League. He is one that we have seen many, many times on Thursday nights where we first kind of got a chance of him, as he's going to move his way up into 5th place in the MX5 category. And just for record, that'll be about 13th overall. That's the speed gap that we're looking at. Gerard Farewell doesn't look like he's able to improve there on that lap. He may get one more crack at it here. No, excuse me, he won't, as I do not believe they will be able to finish their hot laps here. As now we're going to take a look a little farther back down. Kelly Greenhoe down in 9th place. Kelly's not had the best season, but I've got to give him credit. What has always worked for Kelly is the alternate pit strategy, and he continues to run that this year, and it's gained him a couple of positions over the course of weekends.
Yeah, it's really important, the pit stops actually in these races. It won't quite be the same as it was last week here this week because of the nature of the circuit. It's just very different, and it will be a very different race again. But it will still be important, and the earlier pit stop has turned out quite well so far. So we'll see if that strategy is employed once again. But as I say, it's not quite the same as any of the other circuits we've had previously to this one. It's a different circuit, a different challenge, and so a different pit strategy will likely be needed throughout the race.
Indeed it will, and with that checkered flag flying, that means qualifying is done and dusted. We'll bring you the starting grid here in just a few moments' time as everybody gets their way together. And it looks like here at this point we are going to have Marlon McMullen up in pole position. Michael Lang to his outside, the 2 championship rivals right there with one another. As we said, Ariel Auto Art, those cars there, Sharp and Farewell, they'll be starting off in the 2nd row. Let's see what they can do. Behind them, it'll be Jeff Evans and Eric Harmon in P6, working our way back down through the order into P7. That's going to be Nathan Miller and Baron Glover. Then Kevin Berquist lines up in 9th place for Crikey Esports GR86, followed by Nicholas Schwartz. Mark Kalin had a little bit of a rough time last time out in the last couple of rounds, but he'll be hoping for a good bounce back here today as he starts off in 11th with Jimmy Richards flanking him to the outside. Colton Lane going to start off 13th with Doug Evans on his outside. Then it's Richard Modric, Joseph Baer, and Ronald Overbay rounding out your GR86 field. We also have, as we said, the MX5 field to run you through, and in that it's going to be Kevin Sandiego and Michael Chase making up the front row. Then it'll be Sean Bancroft and Austin Bartlett Chase lining up directly behind his father. That'll be a little bit of fun to watch as Dave Peterson and Derek Putnam will wake up row 3. Row 4 is going to be Zach Fuller and Andrew Venaro with Kelly Greenhoe starting 9th and Roman Bykoff down in 10th. Remember, he's the one that's been challenging Kevin Sandiego up in the championship. He's going to have a lot of work to do here tonight. Ian Cabana starts off in 11th with Chance Chet there in 12th 12th place. 13th on the grid today as we work our way down through the order will be Ryan Kings. And then it's Donald Olson, Edward Peltz, Alex Teeter, and Colton Easterday to round out your grid here for today. And just like that, drivers starting to move and get those tires up to speed. Not a lot of time here as a short pace lap brings their way around. Ewan, what's going to be the key to victory here today?
I think track position is going to be very important, so the session that's just passed I think might well be pretty important. Qualifying, it's going to be difficult to overtake around here, so find a way through whichever way you can. And if you're in the MX5 category, of course, stay out of trouble, because it is going to be a race of finding your way through the GR86s, and that is going to be difficult at Oulton Park.
Yeah, going to be very, very difficult indeed as McMullen leads them around. Michael Lang to his outside, looking towards Barney the flagman and the flag stand as there goes the green, and we are racing here in Oulton Park. Talk about a getaway there for Mullen McMullen. He's going to pull away on the field. It looks like Gerard Farrell is getting a little bit swallowed up there. I think there may have been a little bit of a connection issue for Andrew Sharp. Indeed, I'm seeing him actually disconnected as farther back down in the MX5 field. It looks like Kevin Sandiego is off to an absolute stellar start.
He normally does this. He goes even before the final corner sometimes, because the green flag will be already waving for these cars. Every week he seems to catch them all completely unawares, and he's got the big advantage again, more than a second as he makes his way out of turn one for the first time.
I saw a big move there coming down to the inside for Gerard Farrell, trying to be able to get that on Jeff Evans. That's going to be going down through the hairpin. They're now going to be side by side as they crest over Hilltop. That will be Farrell down to the inside. You see him trying to make that move, trying to be able to see if he's able to do anything. He's going to have to fall back into line as they go through Hislops. And you and I don't need to tell you, but those tire bundles, you have got to watch out for those, because they are immovable objects.
They certainly are, and you've got to make sure that, especially side-by-side battling, when you're on your own, it's fine because they don't move and it's fine. But when there's other cars around you and you're battling side-by-side, you have to leave each other the right amount of room, and it might just put people off going side-by-side through there. But when you're going for a move, likely you'll go for it at that hairpin where we use that cut-through there on the back straight, so you will likely be still side by side as you make your way into that chicane. So it may well be a problem. We'll see as the race unfolds, but thankfully nobody has come into contact with them yet.
Nobody has come into contact, but I'll tell you who is losing contact. That is Jeff Evans, who is losing contact with Michael Lang and Marlon McMullen. The two of them absolutely pulling away at the front of this field. And that, I think, is exactly what McMullen wants to do. As we take a look here back a little bit farther in the field, that is some of the Danger Kitty cars trying to work their way around down through the hairpin. Oh! Two independent spins there, near spins, I should say. And I gotta think that's just a little bit of an issue of cold tires catching those drivers off and maybe spinning up the rears.
Yeah, just getting on the power a bit too early at the hairpin there, slowest corner on the circuit, and you find yourself in trouble. All the Mazdas having trouble here by the looks of things. I think it's Ian Cabana, Zach Fuller, out of turn one, having problems, I'm afraid. So that's a shame for him as well, but clearly it's a bit of a problem in these Mazdas as Michael Chase makes his way up to second.
Yeah, Chase makes his way up to second. I think Bancroft may have made a little bit of a mistake there. Bancroft now is going to find himself tucking in behind here. And remember, this is going to be very important. You need to get these passes done. Get yourself into position. We've got another car around. That is Jeff Evans coming out of the hairpin, I believe, up and over Hilltop. That's going to present a little bit of a road jam here as we look up Austin Bartlett Chase trying to be able to dive his way forward, trying to catch up with his dad a little bit farther in the field. He's got a nice gap over Dave Peterson. Another driver having a little bit of problems. That's going to be Baron Glover looking very slow.
It is, and we've seen a number of issues here. So Jeff Evans from third has dropped down, and just chaos at in the field at the moment. Thankfully, pretty much everybody stayed out so far. Only 3 drivers have been to pit lane. That's a big smash on the wall, though, for the number 1. So that's one of the reasons. This is Zach Fuller trying to make a move in towards turn number 1. Very aggressive, and well, he wasn't given all that much room on the inside, to be honest, but he goes around. Then this is Jeff Evans out of Knickerbrook. He just gets on the power too early.
Yeah, that's a real problem we're seeing here, and I can tell you, I've talked to a number of GR86 drivers in real life in the Toyota GR Cup, and they have all told me that the actual power delivery and the handling of these cars is an almost one-to-one comparison here on the iRacing service. So we've seen that happen with a couple of these cars. You get on the power too early, it'll throw you around. But there's one of the storylines immediately starting to develop. San Diego working his way up through the field. He's gotten by Ronald Overbay, and he's pushing his way up towards Joseph Baer. And the crucial thing here for San Diego is that gives him a car. Oh, we've got a big calamity there coming down into the corner. A couple of GR86s and more of them flying off down into Hislops.
Oh, goodness. It's Michael Chase through the chicane. This is what I was talking about with, and he needs to be careful there. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier on with these bits of traffic. You know, it can make or break races. So while San Diego has to be careful, it's played into his hands for the second week in a row here, because a 1.5 second lead has, gone to a 7-second lead now. It's gone from pretty shaky to pretty convincing. This is what happened between the GR86s. It's just an innocent spin, really, and a bit of a roadblock. And then just it coming into the shot will be Michael Chase, who gets on the grass on the way into the chicane and goes around.
It's a commendable idea there for Chase to try to send a move up to the inside, but as you said earlier, it's pretty much a one-way street down through that Hislop chicane. You've got to be very, very careful. We now focus on Roman Bykov. Bykov, who is having a great day here in the MX-5 field. He's already up to 4th place, really moving and shuffling, but now he is going to have a little bit of traffic in front of him in the form of Jeff Evans, as that's going to be Bykov trying to send a move on Austin Bartlett Chase down through Cascades, able to get that to play. And that's one of the weird sort of eccentricities about the first sector of this lap, is that so many times it's actually the outside lane that's going to get you a little bit more speed, a little bit more ability to get your way on by there, and it seems like Roman Bykov knows that.
It's just about finding any way through that you can, really, and Bykov is certainly going to need to do that. He's second place in the points right now too. Kevin San Diego needs to reduce that as much as possible. It's going to be difficult to do anything from nearly 8 seconds back, but he's doing his best and having a look under the car of Jeff Evans there in towards the chicane. Didn't go for it because there was an ever-closing gap, but this will be the problem. The fields are now merged and the MX-5's trying to find their way through. Sean Bancroft has got ahead of Evans though, and that's given him that little bit of breathing room now.
Yeah, he'll have a little bit of breathing room as we take a look on board Jeff Evans here, as he has a view of Roman Bykov right behind him. You see Evans doing often what I do, opening your mouth a little bit, maybe chewing on that lower lip. That is certainly something that a lot of iRacers do, and I love the fact that we are able to get these views of them like this. It really gives you a better sense of just what all these drivers are putting through to try to get themselves through here. But as they cross over the start-finish line, about 7 minutes down in this race, it certainly looks like Bykov is starting to close in. Let's get a little bit of love here to the leader of the entire field, Marlon McMullen, who has pulled a 2.5 second gap over Michael Lang. And the story here for this season, who can beat him? Who can come close to Marlon McMullen? It just seems like car and driver are in absolute sync here.
Yeah, it seems like nobody can get near him, really. He's won the last 4 races in a row. The only time he didn't win was at Daytona, when he didn't start the race. And that is the only way to beat him, pretty much. That's how Michael Lang took that opening race of the season. Half of those 4 wins, by the way, he took the pole position and the fastest lap, took the Grand Slam with him. So he's done most of that here at the moment. He's taken pole position for this race. He'll be searching for that fastest lap, and he'll be searching for the win here as well, but it's just becoming increasingly difficult to stop him. We saw with Michael Lang last week, I think it was Lang last week, who gave him a run for his money through the opening section of the race. But just after a while, you just can't stick with him any longer. There is a point in the race where you just can't hold that pace anymore.
Oh, as that got a little bit hairy there, Roman Bykov trying to make his way on through Joseph Baer and Jeff Evans, and that's going to be Evans going off, ping-ponging across the track. How he didn't collect more drivers, I will never know.
It was like a trampoline there, the tyre wall on the side of the circuit there. Catapulted him back into the path of everybody, and I'm amazed as well that he wasn't collected here. Evans makes a nice pass down the inside, but he just gets on that curb and over the rise, leaves himself too much to do. Wow, he really does leap off the wall there, straight into the path of everybody, and thankfully we've avoided a mass pile-up, because that could have been really bad.
That could have been very bad indeed, as this is Joseph Baer in that white number 97 GR86, holding in behind Kelly Greenhoe. Now, this is going to be the battle for about 19th overall. Greenhoe up in 6th in the MX5 category, and that number 97 machine of Joseph Baer, that car is going to be in about 12th in the GR86 class. So, once again, we see these MX5s working their way through the field, and that's what makes this such a fantastic series to be able to watch, is having to navigate around this multi-class traffic as Baer gets it in too deep. No contact there with Michael Chase. I think Chase is going to be thanking his lucky stars that there wasn't anything worse. Excuse me, that's Andrew Venaro going to be thanking his lucky stars that there wasn't anything worse. We've got another car getting a little bit squirrely there. That's going to be one of the Bad Bunny drivers, and barely able to hold on to it there, and that's Kevin Sandiego. Right behind him, I think that was Doug Evans that we saw getting very squirrely.
Yeah, I thought it was Baron Glover actually, but you might be right. It was, well, maybe, don't know. But off the road anyway. What I was going to say though is that these Toyotas are just really hard to drive. They just look horrible, to be honest. I don't envy any of the drivers who are having to deal with this car, because as soon as it gets slightly unhappy, it throws you off completely, almost in a tantrum. It's just really hard to get a hold of, and so yeah, it's nothing like the Mazda, which is the most accessible car you can imagine, really.
Yeah, and from what I understand about it, it's really a result of some pretty tightly sprung suspension as we watch the battle here between Gerard Farewell and Eric Harmon. And what we mean by that is there's not a lot of body roll in the cars. If you watch the MX-5s as they go around, you'll see how they really and truly lean to one side to the other. These GR86s don't have that, and so when you get into that tank slapper, you get into that little bit of a slide, it becomes so much more difficult to try to gather the car back up under you, and that's why you really have to be careful, because you can't make that first mistake, because once you make the first mistake, you're going to find yourself in some very big trouble.
Yeah, it just seems really, really stiff, really, at times. And there's just not the speed or sort of downforce to justify that, really. So it just looks really odd on occasion, especially, as you say, when they're starting to lose it. You can't seem to catch it very much. I don't know if this is the case, because I'm not a very technically inclined person, but it just looks like the steering rack is really, really short, and they're sort of yanking it around side to side unbelievably, really. So I don't know if that makes any technical sense, but it just looks like that anyway from the off-board cameras. And as I say, I'm glad I'm not driving one of these, because they do look like a handful. But clearly Marlon McMullen is just able to make it work. He's able to make this car sing like nobody else can.
Yeah, and right now we watch continuing this battle here for P3. Farewell, frankly, carrying the flag for his team, as it has been confirmed here at this point that his teammate did disconnect. Andrew Sharp had a manual disconnection before they gridded up, so Sharp was not really able to take to the grid. He is out on track right now as we look a little bit farther back down in the field. Some more of these MX-5s continuing to make their way on through. We ride on board Roman Bykov here. This is third in the MX-5 class, and this is going to be 16th overall. Now there we see a little bit of moving and shaking as Sean Bancroft is able to get his way up ahead of Richard Modric, but really and truly Bykov is the one here who needs to be able to gain as many positions as possible to try to close in on Kevin Sandiego. And Ewan, it's been his qualifying. Bykov's race pace over the past couple of weeks has been really good. He's just put himself on the back foot with qualifying.
Well, we could argue the qualifying thing for these guys, how they find themselves down here, but also they don't seem to be quite as quick in the race either. You can see that gap continue to grow, and I guess that is a little bit down to the traffic and getting in the way for these guys, and that's just extending the margin out even more. But even so, it does seem that Sandiego has control over this at the moment, and control over Bykov, who, as I said earlier, needs to attempt to limit the damage, really. Don't task yourself with catching Kevin Sandiego today, because he's nearly quarter of a minute off the road after less than quarter of an hour in this race. However, at least try and reduce the margin, and he can do that by catching and passing Sean Bancroft, although this run through traffic hasn't been particularly kind to him.
No, it certainly hasn't. But Austin Bartlett Chase, I think, is doing a good job here getting his way up through traffic. That's him in that sort of multicolored yellow to pink to purple machine there that you see closing in behind. And dare I say, he may have a little bit of a think about a move here coming down into Lakeside. He's going to back it up. And that car third in line there, that's Kelly Greenhoe. We were a little bit disparaging of Kelly. He was down in the order, but Kelly's put together a great race here at some point there as they go. And so really and truly, he has been driving a really good race, making good hay through traffic, and we'll have to see if that strategy plays out for him.
We will. It's not that long to go until halfway, and these Mazdas don't make it too far, much further than that. So we'll have to see. I mean, it might not even be too early for someone to go for an early undercut here at this stage. I think Nicholas Schwartz has already made his scheduled pit stop for the day. Just on the last lap. That's early, but it is GR86, and they tend to go that little bit longer. So we'll see, but I think for Kevin Sandiego, it's very much a case of using the clean air you've bought yourself now with 4 seconds in front and 4 seconds behind.
Yeah, he is just going to be keeping on here at this point, bringing the car down through Cascades right now. Sandiego doing a great job of just running his race, and that has been his story this year. What was that, Ewan?
Kelly Greenhoe has taken the early stop again. So our comment earlier about taking the undercut, taking the early stop has proven true once again for goodness knows what week it is in a row.
Yeah, that's really become Kelly's hallmark, and you know, it's one of those things that's a little bit interesting. We don't tend to think of the undercut working a lot in these lesser-powered cars, and specifically in these cars where tire changes aren't really expected, and so for Kelly to be able to do this, it's kind of become his hallmark. Like we said, when this was just the MX-5 series, that's really and truly what that Danger Kitty and whatever iteration of team name that it was, they really pioneered that strategy. So it's good to see that Kelly continues on keeping on with that. Now, what's interesting about it is Kelly's teammate is actually Kevin Sandiego. And Sandiego, well, he doesn't need to do that. He's just going to keep on keeping on, and I got to think he's going to run that tank absolutely dry.
You would think so, and there would be no reason not to, but I guess that is one of the reasons why they are currently top of the team standings right now by just 20 points, so that's going to be an interesting one to watch throughout the remainder of the season. But the only downside with this is that it tends to be a longer stop for Greenhoe in these races. 16 seconds down in the lane, and Colton Lane is just up in front as well by 1.5 seconds, so obviously, they'll all be hoping that Lane pits before Greenhoe gets there. Otherwise, there's going to be a bit of a problem, you would imagine. But Eric Harmon leaves the pit lane after only 9.3 seconds. Don't forget the GR86s do stop for a shorter amount of time anyway.
Yes, they do. It's going to be a little bit of a quicker stop there for them as we take a look on board Mr. Kelly Greenhoe in that number 12 machine, so easily discernible by the white and pink. I always got to say, I love a little bit of a pink race car. It always stands out very, very well. But Kelly now bringing his way around. He's going to find himself deposited back in 19th overall, I believe, as we've got a couple other drivers peeling off down into pit lane. Here is Colton Easterday that we ride on board with. Easterday finds himself a little bit farther down. What was that?
He's just... Oh, right, that's why. Sorry. I thought he was taking a very strange line through that left-hander. It turns out there was someone down his inside. I wondered why his head was on a swivel there, but clearly it has to be when you're in the traffic.
Yeah, it very much does. You cannot let anything up. That's one of the reasons why we love covering this series, is all about the back and forth that you have to have. As here comes Colton down into pit lane. A relatively straightforward pit lane here coming down in, as there he's going to dive on in, and it looks like there that really what we checked in on was him trying to set up that pit stop, getting himself available. As we check right now, this is Baron Glover and I believe Eric Harmon as they bring their way up and over the hill right now. Glover trying to recover from a little bit of an off he had earlier in the race, as they see. As here he comes down to the inside of that number 93 trying to make it work. They're going to be side by side.
Yes, with Jimmy Richards here in the 6th position right now, down the hill through Cascades and towards turn 3. It will be Glover staying behind. Richards still in front. Harmer will be closing in from behind as well. He'll just come through the bottom of the stop there. And he, of course, has already made the pit stop in the GR86s. So would very much like these two to sort it out and get out of the way before he gets there. But obviously they're fighting for a track position. And so they won't just jump out of his way. But we'll see. We're very much in that phase of the race, though, where pit stops are happening with more frequency. Derek Putnam and Andrew Venero both in this time.
Yeah, both of them coming in that MX-5 series there. Looks like about a 16-second pit stop for Venaro, so we'll have to see how that is going to be compared to everything else that these drivers have been doing as Venaro is able to get his way out on track. Here's a little bit of a sandwich and a little bit of a battle that we keep our eyes on. Again, this is still Glover, who has been able to get by Jimmy Richards, but look at that. Eric Harmon now trying to make this a little bit interesting as they go side by side. That's going to be Harmon in the blue machine down to the inside, forcing Jimmy Richards out of the way. That was some pretty brave stuff.
Yeah, this is what Harmon really wanted to avoid earlier on, to be honest, but he's found himself in this situation now, and so you've got to fight your way through the traffic as quickly as you possibly can. Through the final corner now, and he'll be hoping Glover goes to the right-hand side here to pit, but he doesn't. Harmon will have to find a way through on the circuit, and this is not really great for his strategy. He needed the clean air to make it work. The undercut, you always need clean air to make it work, and Harmon just hasn't got that right now.
No, he doesn't, but what he does have is a good run there coming through Old Hall. He's going to look to the outside as they come down in, lining up for Cascades. Is that blue machine going to be able to make it work around the outside? We said that was the way to make a pass, and look at that. Eric Harmon powering on by, trying to make that undercut work as much as possible, but I think he may have lost the time that he needed to gain.
Absolutely, I think he has, and the damage may already be done there. Sean Bancroft as well has got to be careful of this. Surprised he didn't come in last lap actually to avoid this kind of battle, but anyway, as I say, Harmon has lost time there, and the damage may well be already done, but we'll wait and see when everybody else decides to come into pit lane quite what has gone on there, as Michael Lang has had an issue here. He's losing time hand over fist to Marlon McMullen. And he will just he'll stay out and continue to lose time. Nearly 12 seconds back now.
Well, he finds himself in a little bit of...
Oh!
Whoa!
Who was that?
My goodness gracious. I think that was Lang. I don't know who it was that went off in front of Lang, but watch this from on board. Whoa! It doesn't get much closer than that.
I don't know what these tyre walls are made of, by the way, but it clearly is the same stuff they make trampolines out of, because this is ridiculous. I'm not sure why they're springing off the wall like they are and straight into the path of everybody. But for whatever reason, that is the case, and great avoiding driving from Lang, although I'm not sure how much he knew about it.
I'm not sure how much he could have done there. By the way, that was Schwartz that we saw having that big issue in front of him. So that was Nicholas Schwartz as we watch Sean Bancroft now coming down into pit lane, going to get service on that 384 MX-5. As we've said for this entire race, no expected tire changes here. That was a storyline that we followed a couple of seasons ago, that tire changes started to come in a little bit, but we haven't seen any of that this season. But let's see here for our leader in the MX-5s, Kevin Sandiego, running 9th overall as he actually passes some other MX-5 cars out on track, putting them a lap down. Sandiego just having this all to himself here today.
Yeah, nearly half of the cars already a lap down in this race, by the way, so there is lap traffic very much out and about, although some of them will get back on the lead lap because Marlon McMullen is in from the lead of the race. By the way, Kelly Gruno's strategy of pitting early seems to have worked very well in the MX-5s, because Roman Bykov and Sean Bancroft have both come out behind, well, partly because I'd imagine they had slightly longer pit stops. Not entirely sure why, but they did, as Michael Lang will take a brief lead here.
Yeah, he'll take a lead, but as McMullen comes out of pit lane, it looks like he's going to be about 11 or so seconds behind, and that'll easily be able to be retaken once he comes back out of pit lane. Also looks like our leader in the MX-5 category, Kevin Sandiego, is going to be down into pit lane here at this point. Ooh, and that looks like a car that didn't exactly get into the pit stall there the way they wanted to. That's going to be an interesting pit exit. He actually has to reverse the car to be able to get it back around, and that's one of the weird eccentricities of this circuit. What is going on here? Is he missed his stall?
He can't get it. For whatever reason, the 44 as well is parked in a really strange place. That's Schwartz after his crash, but he's now found his box. That has took in a very long time. Sandiego has had to have 2 bites at the cherry here, but let's not forget the lead he had, San Diego. It was upwards of 15 seconds. He finally makes his stop here. 17 seconds in the box. For whatever reason, he's shot towards the lead of the standings. Now he's dropping down, and, well, he's lost the lead considerably here. What a surprise this is.
What a surprise indeed, and look who's up at the top of the charts here at this point. It's Kelly Greenhoe as the number 12. We kind of despaired him a little bit earlier, saying he didn't qualify all that well, but Kelly, my goodness gracious, he finds himself in the lead of this race. He's got a little bit of lap traffic that he's got to deal with, but look at the number 12 go.
Wow, this is quite a surprise, and what a race we have in our hands now, by the way. Bancroft down the inside of Bykov, down in towards the hairpin, and Bancroft will be through into second place. Michael Chase is within 2 seconds of the lead here. San Diego's only 5 seconds back. He can still do this.
Well, and I think if these two are going to be these three are going to be battling as fierce as they will, I think that may allow for San Diego to catch back up. This is going to be an absolute cracker of a final 10 minutes, folks. Do not go anywhere, but I'll tell you what, Sean Bancroft there coming off of Knickerbrook got a little bit squirrely. He's going to have to watch out for that. We ride on board your former leader here, though, of Kevin San Diego, trying to make a move on Austin Bartlett Chase coming down into Druids.
Well, let's see through these this fast double apex corner. They both overshot it, both misjudged it, and San Diego still has the car control to keep his foot in. Down in towards Old Lodge corner. He'll be down the inside, and he will be through into the final turn, up into the top 5. And that's exactly what he needs to do. Make quick and decisive moves, because there's only 10 minutes left.
10 minutes left, 5 seconds to make up. The race is on for Kevin San Diego as he tries to be able to claw his way back up into the lead of this race. But it's his teammate, Kelly Greenhoe, that leads here at this point. He's going to have a little bit of time here before he catches up to Michael Chase in front of him. That'll buy him a little bit of breathing room, and he'll be able to just put in some good fast laps. We check back in on the leader here of the race overall, Marlon McMullen. Now that the pit stops have been completed for the GR86 class, back up to 12, 13 seconds. He's back in dominant form.
Absolutely is. 13 seconds is the gap. And he'll just be cruising at this stage. McMullen, I guess, focusing a little bit on completing that Grand Slam and getting the best lap of the race so far as well. He's the only person in the 132s, and so should get that fastest lap point as well to further extend his championship lead as Baron Glover comes into the pit lane. Still waiting for Jimmy Richards to come in, by the way.
As Baron Glover is going to bring that car in. Jimmy Richards, let's give him a big plaudit here for the best right foot as they go. Check in on Sean Bancroft, about 0.8 of a second behind Kelly Greenhoe. Remember, right behind him in that sort of tan car, that is Roman Bykov. That is the driver who needs to make up time here at this point. He really needs to try to push to get by Bancroft, to get by Greenhoe, and to try to take as many points away from his title rival, Kevin San Diego, as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's an opportunity that can't be missed for Bykov especially, but really everybody around. You can't forget that Bykov's not actually that far in front of the likes of Andrew Venero. I know he's further back, but Michael Chase is only 10 points behind Bykov, so it's important for him. Kelly Greenhoe only 12 points behind Bykov. It's important there as well. Bancroft 45 back from San Diego, so they're all relatively close here. They can all do with this opportunity, and they can't turn this chance down, so they've got to absolutely go for it, in my opinion. But let's see what they can actually do. I would imagine it's only a few points they're going to gain because of the way the point system works, but you've got to just chip away at this kind of margin and see what happens.
Yeah, chipping away is the operative phrase here. We ride on board with Mark Kalin in the GR86 category, currently P14. That was Kevin San Diego that just went on by him. And there you can see that MX-5 battle sort of percolating in front. We had a chance to talk to Mark Kalin a little bit after the race last time out. Said he was a little bit disappointed. Oh, is that Austin Bartlett Chase with a problem? The unlimited slip driver getting it all wrong coming out of Knickerbrook.
By the looks of it, there was unlimited slip on those rear tyres, I'm afraid, as they came out of Knickerbrook, because he's found himself off. But seems to have made contact with the wall since there's no front end on that car anymore. Out of the final corner come the leaders in the MX-5s though, and Sean Bancroft might be able to take the lead. It's the early undercut from Greenhow once again getting into the lead, but it's difficult to defend from the front in the Mazdas, even at Oulton Park where it's quite difficult to overtake. These Mazdas promote racing so much that it does make racing a little bit annoying from the lead when you are in this situation, so it's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Be interesting indeed as we take another look on board with Kalen here, bringing the car around, seeing that battle just percolating up in front of him. You saw Bancroft take a little bit of a look coming down the start-finish straightaway, decided to pull back into line as they run. Kalen doing a very good job of navigating his way around this track. When I spoke to Mark, he really said it's all just about consistency and getting those laps together. That's what he wants to be able to do for this season as they now come down into the braking zone for Hislops. These are your top 4 drivers in the MX-5 category. That is Greenhow, Bancroft, Bykoff, and Chase as they run around. This is what happened to Austin Bartlett. Chase Ewan, it looks like just another instance of a little bit too much speed and maybe a little bit of those curbs.
Yeah, unfortunately getting on the power again. These Mazdas proving to be a little bit more deadly than maybe you'd expect as a result of these slow speed corners and accelerating out of them. It's a bit of a surprise to see. But there we are, something to negotiate, something to think about for these 4 out front. They're all in the slipstream now. Greenhow, Bancroft, Bykoff and Chase all fighting for the win. Kevin Sandiego had a poor lap last lap and so has fallen back to 5 seconds again. So while he is quicker than all of them, he won't be getting involved, I don't think, with 5 minutes to go.
No, I don't think he will at this point, just a little bit too far back, but that's of no concern to us because we've got a cracker of a battle here that is beginning to take place. Sean Bancroft, Roman Bykoff working their way forward, trying to see if they are able to beat out Kelly Greenhow, who made an undercut strategy work to absolute perfection here. I like what I'm seeing out of Greenhow. He's not necessarily running defensive, as soon as I say that, he may have needed to run a little bit more defensive, as that was a huge send down into the inside for Sean Bancroft.
It certainly was, and it's going to be side by side, even so, into towards the chicane. Bancroft on the inside, Greenhow with the difficult task of going around the outside, but he's done it somehow, and still up into the lead here. That was remarkable. I was expecting the inside driver to take that one for sure, but it just shows that using the outside line at the chicane is possible.
Certainly does, and it's possible to go too wide through there, something I didn't think was possible, but now it's going to be Roman Bykoff seeing if he can make it too wide down through Druids, and he can not only make it too wide, he's going to make it work too wide. Now the next driver up to see if he can take a little bit of an advantage here is going to be Michael Chase working on Sean Bancroft. Bancroft's already lost 1 position up to Roman Bykoff in front of him, but they're still going to run very, very close to one another. Only just about 4 minutes left to go here in this race. Michael Chase doesn't get the run off of Lodge corner that he would have liked. These drivers have got to be careful here. I'm keeping an eye on that gap back to Kevin Sandiego lurking in the background. If they continue to fight, if they continue to tussle, Kevin's going to be right involved in this as here comes Bykoff trying to make that outside line work around Cascades. Kelly Greenhow's going to hold the inside line, and that's going to be Sean Bancroft going to try to gain the position over Bykoff here as they make the run down towards Lakeside. It's now going to be a battle for P2 in the MX-5 class as Greenhow's going to be able to hold on to that top line, takes the more defensive line this time around. Bykoff sends it in deep, and Bancroft is going to be the one losing out.
Well, this fight could really play into the hands of Greenhow because Bykoff and Bancroft are still side by side there. Going towards the chicane, it's going to be Bancroft back through again into second. Greenhow wasn't given enough time, really, more than anything, to get away with that one and get away with the lead. So it will remain a 5-car battle now for the win as Sandiego joins and Greenhow goes off the road at Knickerbrook.
He goes off the road, that slows him down enough. Sean Bancroft says thank you very much. He's going to easily slide around the outside, and the 384 is able to make the move play. Oh, almost a little bit of contact there behind between Bykoff and Kelly Greenhow. We ride on board with Kevin Sandiego here at this point as he tries to close down on Michael Chase. This is the battle for the top of the MX-5s.
Into the final turn. It's really late on the brakes from Bykoff, and he rips around the outside of Michael Chase to hold on to third. That was another slide from Greenhow out of the final turn, and Bykoff may even get closer despite making a move there. Still had the run on the front straight. Kevin Sandiego goes down the inside of Michael Chase though, and he's, well, not quite made it. I thought he would push Chase out wide and get the place signed and sealed already, but he has to stay behind and he'll have to try again. I think there's still 3 laps including this one for these guys, because Marlon McMullen is only just crossing onto his penultimate lap right now.
Oh, that's music to my eyes here at this point. More battles, more exciting moves as there's Bykov trying to take a look down to the inside of Kelly Greenhoe, and the two make contact. That is going to be both of them out, and Kevin Sandiego says, thank you very much. I will hold on to that P2.
And Kevin Sandiego able to be in the right place at the right time to do the right thing once again. In towards the hairpin, the big moment of the race as Bykov tried to send it down the inside of Greenhoe. Wasn't quite getting, oh, it's a difficult one to call that. Does Greenhoe move over too late? Does Bykov have the avenue to go down here? Well, to be fair, Bykov doesn't actually look really in control of his car.
No, I noticed that when he was coming down into the braking zone, you could actually see his hands sawing at the wheel and trying to get it under control, just couldn't get it. I wonder if he had maybe a little bit of rear brake lock up or maybe touched that rear end potentially, as that could have been what sent him around. Well, this is going to be Kevin Sandiego. What a remarkable tail here for the driver of the 88. A yo-yo performance, up and down and up and down and up. He is now finding himself in second position, and the way everything's playing itself out, he's going to gain points on his biggest rival.
Oh, and Michael Chase is into the pit lane here. Surely it can't be damaged. Well, I guess that's the only thing it can be. Oh, is it drive-through? It's a drive-through penalty, isn't it? It's a drive-through penalty for the incident limit. So, you don't get instantly disqualified anymore. As days passed in iRacing, you have to take a drive-through these days, and so, well, you're doing this series anyway. So Chase has to go through there, and you can be absolutely sure it's because of at least one 4X he would have got down at the hairpin.
Yeah, he certainly would have, and that would be enough to do that. By the way, we're hearing here that this is the last lap. That's right, white flag is in the air here for Marlon McMullen, who has just looked simply sublime here today. Tries to navigate his way on by Michael Chase there, but look at this. This may be the battle for 9th overall, but this is the battle for P1 in the MX5 category. Kevin Sandiego not done with the chase here today.
It just shows that he is a formidable opponent in this series, no matter whether he has double the pit stop time of what he should do or not. He is very, very quick indeed. Sean Bancroft has to defend, and he really protects the inside line into Lodge. They'll have one more lap after this one, let's not forget. It is the final lap, but they will be able to continue on through the final corner. Oh, Sandiego leaves it all out there, but he won't have the run in towards turn 1. He will give it a right good go through this final lap, though.
Yeah, he certainly will. You can see just how wide he's trying to take the track there as opposed to Bancroft trying to cover that off. This is your leader of the race, Marlon McMullen, down to the inside of Michael Chase as he brings his way through the final corners now up over Deer Leap and taking victory in the GR86. Once again, it's Marlon McMullen.
Once again, fantastic driving and nearly 20 seconds of an advantage over Michael Lang and more than a half minute back to Jared Farrowell to round out the podium. And this is the fight for the win in MX5.
Oh, here we go. That's Bancroft to the outside. That is Kevin Sandiego down to the inside. They're going to be working their way over Hilltop down into the chicane of Hislops. Who's going to be able to make this work? It looks like Kevin Sandiego has a little bit of a nose ahead, but the track comes back. Contact between the two, and Sandiego off into the grass.
Bancroft stood his ground really, really well round the outside of the first part through the chicane. He got the inside for the second part, and while there was contact, I can't see anything wrong with that whatsoever. It was side-to-side contact. It was high drama, certainly, but Sean Bancroft was absolutely within his rights to do that, in my opinion, and he should go on to take the win now.
He certainly should. Really only one more sequence of corners to go here as he brings it down into Lodge. And I've got to agree with you there, Ewan. That was just a racing deal for me between the 384 and the number 88 as Bancroft comes up and over Deer Leap. And that will be victory for the first time this season for Sean Bancroft in the MX5s.
Congrats, Sean Bancroft. Deserved win in the end. Kevin Sandiego will obviously be ruining the pit stop drama. I'm not sure whether he was put off, but I can't stop thinking about the pit lane incident he had and quite how he managed to do that. I don't know whether he was just caught off guard by an early box or what was going on, but anyway, we should do that more often because when San Diego's got a handicap, it's a very close race.
It is indeed, as there you see the final finishing results for the Toyota GR86 class. McMullen taking victory over Lang and Farrell, while Eric Harmon and Nathan Miller rounding out your top 5. Kevin Berquist worked his way up into 6th, followed by Baron Glover. Let's give him some credit. He had a little bit of a down day, had that off earlier on. He was able to recover back up into 7th. Then it was Jimmy Richards and Mark Kalin who gets a very well-deserved top 10, and Doug Evans will round out your 10 in the finishing order. Then it was Andrew Sharp. Credit to him. Started from the pit lane and had to work his way back on through. That was a really good run there for him. Richard Modric also 1 lap down with Colton Lane. And then some drivers that had a little bit of problems out there today. Bear, Schwartz, Evans, and Overbay, all DNFs as they run. Let's also take a look over at the MX-5 finishing order. Well, you heard us hooting and hollering about it. Bancroft able to take the win over Kevin San Diego, but crucially for San Diego, he was able to hold off Roman Bykov there, and he will continue to grow his advantage over the rest of the field in the championship. Andrew Venara was 4th with Michael Chase in 5th. Then it was Zach Fuller. Kelly Greenhough's strategy looked like it worked out perfectly, but some late contact there sent him around, and he'll finish in 7th. Derek Putnam, Donald Olson, and Ian Cabana round out your top 10 finishers here, all of them a lap down. Then it was Edward Peltz and Colton Easterday, both 2 laps down, and then some drivers that found themselves in trouble. Austin Bartlett Chase, Chance Chet, Dave Peterson, Ryan Kings, and Alex Teeter. Well, that's going to go ahead and bring us right on into a little bit of interviews. And here at this point, I want to be talking to our overall winner, Marlon McMullen. Marlon, you looked untouchable out there today. Is there anything you can't do in this car?
Well, the car can't make me a cup of coffee, so I don't know what the car can do for me. That's the question I'm asking it now. But I've really been enjoying it lately. You know, as I said a few weeks ago, I've sort of dialed in with the setups a bit more and sort of making them a bit more for my style, and it's paying off. You know, but today Michael was really quick at the start in the draft, so I was really pushing, and then once the traffic started to come to it, I don't know, it was getting tricky out there, especially for the oncoming threat of rain.
Indeed. Well, you were able to handle it well, and I've got to ask you, you know, with the conditions like this, and with this being such a narrow circuit, does that change the way you prepare? We heard some drivers in the chat maybe talking about how the tires weren't fully up to temperature on those first couple of laps.
Well, in the practice session, I made sure to sit out the first half an hour because it was all pitch black. So I thought, okay, we'll come in, we'll see if it gets a bit better. I didn't expect it to be this overcasty or whatever it is. Like someone set off a bushfire or flare. It's like Zandvoort or something. But so I waited, never changed, and then we went out there. I did me aggressive tyre weaving on the outlap and tried to generate some temp into the brakes as well. And you know, it paid off, but it just never felt like normal, you know, compared to the normal races we do throughout the week. Yes, so it was treacherous, but it was enjoyable. But towards the end, it started to get a little bit better.
Well, certainly enjoyable for you. Suzuka West next time out, that going to be another enjoyable circuit for you?
Hopefully. I mean, I did well at the long course, but you know, you take a whole minute off the lap and you know, all the drafting. I'm sure it's going to be hopefully a bit more action packed for you guys because you know, we want to put on a good race. So it's like, you know, I like going out there and you know, going subsonic, but Michael and Sharp, they're really stepping up lately, so I've got to keep on my toes with them.
Well, we hope that your feet muscles are well indeed strong and that you're able to keep up on your toes. Marlon, congratulations on another dominant victory here today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to Advanced Sim Racing, Racebox Sim Racing, Butt Kicker, Mecha Sim Hardware, Ninja Trader, Muradness, you guys, and PRL.
All right, well, thank you so much. And it looks like you've been able to catch up with the winner out of our MX-5 class, Mr. Sean Bancroft.
Sean, welcome to the booth. Good to have you here. And a very exciting last lap for us. But what was it like from your perspective?
It was terrifying. I was watching the relative, just watching San Diego catch up, 0.3 per lap, and I knew he was going to catch me before the race was over, and I was hoping I was going to take the white flag the lap before, but that wasn't the case, so I had to do another lap. And it was just fighting for my life, basically, defending through pretty much every corner. But fortunately, I made it stick, and I was able to come home with the win.
And what about the actual contact itself? Personally, I didn't see anything wrong with it at all. It was just unlucky that San Diego found himself in the grass. What was your perspective on it?
So I got the 0x, but my teammates, Zach and Colton, they watched the replay, and it looks like there's a bit of netcode involved. There was definitely space between our cars, and my car didn't jolt as if it made contact or anything. I think it was just an unfortunate situation.
Absolutely. What about as the season as a whole? Because San Diego's been pretty difficult to stop so far. What are you planning to do for the remainder of the races? How can you finish ahead of him more frequently?
Well, I guess the easiest answer for that is get faster. But the plan is really just what I've been doing all along. Just be Mr. Consistent, stay out of incidents, and just keep it clean. Because if I can keep it clean and they make mistakes, I'll catch up, and that'll give me a fighting chance.
Absolutely. Sean, congratulations on the win here tonight at Alton Park, and thanks very much for chatting to us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much. Sean Bancroft, winner here today at Alton Park in the MX-5.
And we have also been able to catch up with the driver who finished just behind him, Kevin San Diego. Kevin, it seemed like a little bit of an up and down day for you, to say the least. Let's start at one of the more confusing incidents we've seen. What happened there in the pit stops for you?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting my pit stall to be the first one right after the wall, and so I turned in as close as I could. I parked, but apparently the angle was too acute or something, and I didn't see right away that it wasn't fueling. I just sat there for a bit and finally figured it out and had to sort of do a 3-point turn to get back in there, which was unfortunate because I had a pretty good healthy lead at that point.
Indeed you did, but you were able to come back and fight for that lead. It's got to be a little bit disappointing, I'm sure, to miss out on victory here today, but are you able to take a little bit of solace that you were able to finish ahead of Roman Bykov and continue to extend that gap?
Yeah, for sure. It was a fun drive anyway. It's always a good time at Alton Park, and had a good time going through the other cars. There were a few incidents that were unfortunate, but it was pretty good overall.
Well, pretty good indeed. Kevin, congratulations on a second place here today, and we'll see you next time out in Suzuka.
All right, DJ. Have a good night, guys. Take care.
Right back at you. That was Kevin San Diego, your second place finisher here tonight, and that's going to turn the book here on Alton Park. But Ewan, as we said, we head off to Suzuka West next time out, another sort of club circuit. And I certainly hope we're going to have just as exciting action as we are out on the track next time out.
It's pretty similar, I guess, in style to the Alton Park round, I would say, that we've just had in terms of its twisty nature, especially the first sector. But it's a much shorter version than the circuit we were at only a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, for the Grand Prix layout. Yeah, it was indeed a couple of weeks ago. It's very, very different, much shorter, and I think much more suiting to these cars. They're not too exciting in the real long straights and the wide open parts, but on the West layout with some real interest and corners all the time, seemingly, it should be an interesting one.
It should be interesting indeed, and I can tell you that this is one commentator very much looking forward to that. But, ladies and gentlemen, folks of all of the world, fear not, because the racing action is not done today as we get ready to go for the GT4 Sprint Series live from the circuit Gilles Villeneuve in virtual Montreal, Canada. Ewan, this track is, well, it's sort of a deceptive street circuit. We don't normally think of it as a street circuit, but those barriers are awful close, and this is going to be a fun race, I think, in these GT4 cars.
I absolutely love this circuit in any car, really. I think the GT4s are going to suit it very well. We've had some great circuits on the books so far. Really enjoyed the race 1 week ago at the Red Bull Ring and Mid-Ohio before that. Well, all the races, really, I've thoroughly enjoyed so far. Can't wait to see how this one is going to pan out as well. So let's see. But what a great circuit it is. As you say, it's kind of a street circuit. Doesn't behave one like one all the time, but as soon as you go off the road, it will feel like it behaves like one immediately.
Yeah, it certainly will. Those walls ready to catch you out. And as we look at the rest of the schedule here, Indianapolis, always a little bit of a favorite of mine, the Nürburgring, Magny-Cours, and then ending the season at the California hotbed of racing at Laguna Seca. Going to be a fun way to wrap up this GT4 fixed sprint series. Let's go ahead and run you through the championships here, as it is Beckham J. Sear leading the way, albeit very narrowly, over Justin Ream. That is the battle that we are going to be keeping our eyes on here tonight. It's Sear versus Ream. But frankly, we've got other battles to keep our eyes on as well, as Nicholas Risaputo and Nicholas Belmont are in a little bit of a Nicholas battle for P3 in the championship. Walker Caton tied with Matthew Fortin there, as well as Miles Brown. Hugo Gallo a little bit ways back, but David Richards closing down on him, and Austin Lawrence not too far behind as well. So some very, very close running there in the Drivers' Championship. But as we transition over into the Teams' Championship, we see that, well, things are starting to stretch out a little bit at the top of the field. Walking Pace Racing holding about a 50-point advantage over Atomic Racing, and then Team Beef about 18 points behind them. But Race Factory coming up very, very closely. Well, I am hearing that that team has officially been rebranded, I believe, to Fiercely Forward. Radicals Online, 465 Garage, not too far behind them with Grizzlies of Attrition. Delta Sport there as well, and a little bit of a battle with Apollo Racing Club. And then it's Drive Trainer Motorsports and Muradness M Squad to round out the order there today. And as we take a look at this circuit, you know, Ewan, this is a track that it seems like overtaking should be pretty easy. It's a lot of straightaways followed by chicanes, but the reality is there's really only about one or two opportunities you can realistically and safely get a pass done here around this circuit de Villeneuve.
There are a couple of chances. The beauty of it is it's not a very long circuit, so generally the opportunities do come back around again quite quickly. But it can be tricky on occasion. And basically, this circuit really is made up of a number of chicanes and a hairpin. You could argue that turns 1 and 2 is sort of a chicane, with turn 2 becoming a bit of a hairpin. 3 and 4 certainly does what it says. 6 and 7, another chicane. 8 and 9, then there's the hairpin down at turn 10. Then there's the final famous one, of course. So it's not very complicated, really, but it does provide such a challenge. And these sort of street circuits that behave a little bit more like race circuits, and so that you don't have the real tight constraints of a real true street circuit, but you do have the sort of racetrack nature that you get around here as well. Makes it really, really fascinating in my opinion. It's why circuits like this one, like Adelaide in Australia, for example, and other examples, that's why they're some of the most exciting in the world, in my opinion. They're really, really fantastic to drive and hopefully to race on as well. I think these cars are going to suit it well.
Yeah, I think they are as well. My only regret out of this circuit is we really don't get to see a whole lot of GT racing on it, as it is a street circuit. The Ile de Notre Dame is indeed a functioning park on the middle of an island off of Montreal. There we go. And the first blow in that battle that we were talking about between Beckham J. Sear and Justin Ream, it appears to be going to the Hydro Race geodesic driver of Justin Ream, holding on to an advantage here of, that's pretty substantial there, 4.5 tenths of a second up the front of the field.
Yeah, that's pretty significant as well. We saw this, though, when we jumped into qualifying last round as well, though. Rim just really strong in the opening part of qualifying. About the time we joined, he's basically won. So the times do tend to come down a little bit towards the end of these sessions, of course, but it's difficult to see Rim being overhauled from here. And we'll see if very much the same situation as last week comes on, because 1 week ago he wasn't really challenged back at the Red Bull Ring, especially not towards the end. Nearly 14 seconds. We saw a great battle for the other positions, of course, but not really for first.
No, not necessarily, as here's another McLaren driver, Hugo Gallo, working his way down through the second set of chicanes. Very easy to be able to get a tire wrong there. Just ask Sebastian Vettel about that, as Gallo probably going to be in a pretty good car, I would have to imagine, for this circuit. We've talked a lot about that McLaren straight line speed and the ability for them to just get on the power and go very, very quickly in a straight line. And it certainly looks like it's playing out here today, as indeed Ream, Caton, and Gallo all up in the top 4 in those McLarens.
Yeah, over the course of the season, the GT4 cars have been pretty well balanced, really, with 3 different manufacturers inside the top 4 of the point standings, with Mercedes, McLaren and Porsche all being represented. First BMW in 7th as well, by the way. But in terms of this race, it's a little bit more difficult for those in the other manufacturers that are not in the McLaren. Because of what you just said there, straight line speed and power is so important at this circuit because of the amount of straights that you do have. I mean, between all of the chicanes that I listed there, it's pretty strenuous on power and on straight line speed. Even this straight here, some would knock it down as quite short between 7 and 8, but you're using a lot of power and a lot of straight line speed as well, and that's going to really play into the McLaren's hands throughout the day. Beckham Jasir here, though, has just got to grab the slipstream of those in front and try and get tagged along with those in the McLarens.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing here today is keeping that slipstream close, as I think if you do lose touch with those drivers in front of you, you're going to find yourself in a pretty rough run. Here is the number 42, though, of Adam Brockway for that Maradness M Squad team that currently holds on to 10th place in the championship. That very distinctive purple livery, we saw them get the elbows out a little bit last time out in the Red Bull ring. Maybe hoping to have a little bit more of a calm and contained race here today, but a top 5 right now going to be pretty good, I would have to think, for Brockway. Here is Michael Terrafino, though, for Team Beef, another one of those drivers that has had some really good running. Another Mercedes driver that finds themselves up into the top 10. We'll have to see what Team Beef is able to do as they continue to try to close down on their rivals in that team's championship.
Yeah, and they continue to have a little bit of a more disappointing season than I was expecting from them, actually, for Terrafino and Roy Brown. I was expecting them to be solid top 10s week in, week out, but unfortunately that's not really been the case so far this season. Then again, to win a team's championship, you don't need that every week necessarily, but they do have a 63-point disadvantage to walking pace racing because of Walker Caton, partly, and also Mariano Barrios as well in that team. So. Yeah, Team Beef will have to step it up just a little bit, and this is a good way to start for Terrafino, although I can't see Roy Brown anywhere nearby. He's down in 20th at the moment. That's the kind of thing I mean, really. I think he's capable of doing a little bit better.
Yeah, I think he most certainly is as well. The one thing that's going to be helping out Terrafino on the day, though, is he'll be getting a nice little pull of slipstream down the back straightaway here, down the Casino Straight. Does look like Walker Caton is in pit lane, and with about 2 minutes left in the session, I dare say that'll be session done for him. Matthew Fortin able to improve their position up into P11. Fortin's immediately going to come down into pit lane as well. Let's see here if Terrafino's going to have a little bit of improvement. Currently finds himself about a full second off. That's going to be an improvement, and that's going to be up to 6th place for the Team Beef driver. He'll be very, very happy with that.
He will be. That's very much more like it from Terrafino to get up inside the top 10 and within a second of Ream as well, which has proved to be pretty difficult. Hugo Gallo is as well, and he'll be looking to move to within half a second of Justin Ream by the end of this lap, although he does have the advantage of being in the very sleekly shaped McLaren, aerodynamically favoured McLaren, certainly in a straight line. So he makes his way towards the final corner. A bit of a hop, skip and a jump over the curbs and avoiding the wall of champions, because it's not particularly a good omen, despite its name, over the line, and he won't improve on this lap.
No, it looked like he was a little bit slow there, and it was kind of an awkward run down to that start-finish line coming out of the Wall of Champions. You've got to kind of figure out how you want to straight line it as we watch Joshua Chinsky working his way now down through the hairpin. He's going to get a nice little draft there off of that BMW in front of him. Looks like Ryan Miles is also down into pit lane, a couple of drivers further back in the field. Chinsky currently sits in 8th place, about a full second off of Justin Ream in front of him, but I've got to think here with that draft off the number 14 in front, that's going to be really helping out that McLaren. We've already said no slouch in a straight line. Chinsky's going to be looking pretty good here with about 40 seconds left to go. He'll be one of the last drivers to cross over the line, and dare I say, maybe be able to put in a pretty good time here.
Oh, well, he's... no, not anymore. For Chinsky, he'll stop on the exit of the chicane. Justin Ream will be satisfied with his day's work so far as well, you'd imagine. Can't imagine Beckham Jasir is going to get anywhere near here in the newly painted, fiercely forward car. That's what the yellow and black livery is all about. Looks very good on the Mercedes, I've got to say, but we'll see just how close he can get. I don't think he'll be troubling himself with trying to jump over Ream here, but just to get a tenth of a second and get on the front row with him at least. Oh my word, that was a jump over the curb.
That was a big clobber of the curbs, and I think he may have actually brushed the wall of champions there. If that's the case, this will discount his lap, but it's not going to matter no matter what because he was a little bit slower there on that last time of asking. As Hugo Gallo's going to practice pit lane entry, that's going to be a point of contention here in this race. Rest assured that is a very dangerous pit entry here as Adam Brockway in the purple number 42 brings his way around right now. Let's see if he's going to be able to improve from a 142 flat. Yes, he is, a 141.9, although I don't... Yes, that is going to move him over Hugo Gallo. That's a second row start for Adam Brockway.
Yeah, very narrowly improves lap time and just one position to his name as well. But you're right, pit lane entry is going to be a very different and challenging affair once again this week. Not in the same way as it was at the Red Bull Ring, where you're scared of being hit from behind. Instead, you're scared of hitting the drivers in front of you. And on this particular occasion, you want to make sure that nobody's in front of you by the time you make your pit stop. So the leader will very much protect that position, because when you're coming into the pit lane, you really want that clear run in so you can maximise that braking zone and maximise the time that you lose, or try and reduce the time that you lose is probably a better way of putting it, as you're going into the pit lane. Because if there's someone in front of you, you'll have to brake for the chicane as normal, then accelerate a little bit again, and then hit the brakes for the pit lane entry line, and that will be inherently slower than anyone who's got a clear run into the lane.
Exactly. It's one of the things that makes this track so fascinating, is there you saw Terrafino able to improve a little bit, but not enough to be able to get it done there on the day. As we wait for the last drivers to cross over the line here and be able to bring things around. This is going to be an interesting one. Passing can happen here, so it's not, I think, going to be as qualifying dependent as we were previously in the production car challenge at Oran Park, but Alton Park, excuse me. I'm jumping over to Australia there. But this one today going to be very challenging for the drivers, I think, and very easy to have a big stack up coming down into the Senna S on lap 1.
It could well be. I'm a little bit more worried, I've got to say, about turn 3 and 4 as it gets really narrow out of there. And if someone comes unstuck, then there may well be no way through for those behind. Especially because these cars just feel a little bit bigger and they take up a little bit more space than open wheel cars that traditionally do race around here.
Yeah, exactly. Going to have just a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit less downforce and a little bit less of oomph. But nevertheless, the racing is still going to be absolutely electric. As there we take a look at the casino that actually does exist here. You can walk on in, put a couple of bets down as you watch cars work their way around the circuit to Gilles Villeneuve. As looks like here that drivers are starting to populate their way onto the grid right now. It's time to run you through the starting order. Justin Ream going to be leading off with Walker Caton for Walking Pace Racing in the front row. Beckham J. Sear there for Fiercely Forward in P3, followed by Adam Brockway. Then it's going to be Hugo Gallo and Michael Terrafino to round out your top 6, all Mercedes, all McLarens. Nicholas Rice-Aputo starts off in 7th, and Joshua Chinsky to his outside, carrying on that trend. Jake Haskell for Grizzlies of Attrition lines up 9th, and Robert Ridgway is 10th in the first Porsche in the field. Then it's Austin Lawrence in 11th place, followed by Matthew Fortin in 12th place. Moving on back through the field, Nicholas Belmont, not the best run there for the Porsche driver, but we'll have to see what he's able to do throughout the day. Alex May for PCF Racing is going to line up to his outside with David Van Roy and Ryan Miles in the row behind them. Miles Brown will be the first of our BMW drivers in the field, and he's going to have a fellow BMW company for him on the outside. Then it's David Richards and Roy Brown for Team Beef, then Josh Kimball and Corey Groves. 23rd will be Ryan Reeves, followed by Glenn Vanko in 24th position. We continue to roll down through the grid in 25th, Jerome Bertone there, and then Brian Hoskins rounds out your 26-car grid. As we get ready to go here, it looks like the pace car has pulled off, so not a lot of time left. I gotta think here that a little bit similar to what we saw last time out at the Red Bull Ring, keeping in that draft is going to be pretty crucial for these drivers today, Ewan.
Yeah, the draft is going to be important. As I mentioned, the straights around here are very long and very frequent as well. So if you've broken that, then you'll be away, as Ream did 1 week ago. But it could be a very different story. Jasir needs to pay a lot closer attention to Ream now because of the point standings. There's only 2 points separating them after half of the 10 rounds of this season.
And Here they go, coming out of that final corner, and it's going to be a little bit of a kerfluffled start here, and that's going to be Ream holding everybody back here, waiting for the green flag, as there goes the green, and we get racing here in Canada. Ream gets a picture-perfect getaway. That's going to be Beckham J. Sear trying to challenge down to the inside there in that number 12 machine. He's going to get that position. That's exactly what J. Sear needs for this championship hunt. As we look down through the rest of the field, a lot of two-wide action, but I'm not seeing any incidents. Let's see if they're able to make it through 3 and 4 just as cleanly.
Slightly reduced 26-car field, but very clean through the opening couple of corners on the opening lap, and mostly single file inside the top 10. Oh no! As they're getting towards the turn 3 and 4, someone's in the wall down there, I'm afraid to say. Yeah.
That's Walker Caton, one of your championship hopefuls there. Very hard impact into the outside barriers, but nobody has seemed to tow the rest of this field as they continue to fight themselves out here and run 2 by 2. Up at the front, though, Justin Ream continues to try to pull away Beckham J. Sear and Adam Brockway, and the pair of Mercedes try to close him down with Hugo Gallo 3rd and Michael Terrafino 4th.
Yeah, thankfully Caton didn't spring back into the path of everybody else and cause the roadblock that I was fearing out of turn 4, but it's still not great news for his race. He's actually continued on, by the way. Nobody else has had issues on lap 1. Fortunately, it's just him, but he hasn't actually even had to pit at the end of that one, so clearly didn't hit the wall hard enough to warrant making a pit stop. Just a real shame to see such a strong qualifying place to go to waste, really.
Yeah, very much so, and that's kind of exactly what you see is we see something else that is going to be a storyline of the race, I think. Now it's Justin Ream playing a little bit of the draft game, maybe trying to move out of the way very quickly to break that draft as they work their way down through the... Oh, that's a slowdown penalty! That's a slowdown penalty for Ream coming down through the wall of champions, and he is going to drop 3, 4, 5 positions!
The most obvious mistake you can make at this circuit has already been made, and look how much it's hurting Justin Ream there. He'll drop to 9th place. He'll be side by side with Austin Lawrence. My word, that was close. In towards turn 1, he'll have to slot back in. What a big mistake, a costly error for Ream. I mean, to be honest, the slowdown harshness there was ramped up to 10 out of 10, but still, Ream did cut the corner, I suppose, and so he does have to drop back as a result. This is a replay of lap 1.
All right, so this is the incident with Walker Caton. It looks like there maybe just an issue of getting onto the loud pedal while coming onto the rumble strips. Maybe a little bit too much speed. Let's take another look here. I think that car was just unsettled when he came over the second curb there, the middle part of the chicane, and he got onto the power while the car was unsettled.
Yeah, it just seemed to be bobbling over that curb, and as he got onto the power, as you say, he just went all wrong. Oh, that's a big hit for one of the BMWs. Further down the order, that was Brian Hoskins, who's now found himself down in pit lane, and Ream again! Another slowdown!
Oh, dropping down through the order again and again, and now he's going to find himself in an absolute bottleneck coming down into the hairpin. My goodness, Ream is going to find himself all the way down in the field, flashing the headlights, trying to clear drivers out in front of him. That's your championship points leader, and this is the chance for Beckham J. Sear to absolutely capitalize. Let's take a look. I think it was the clip at the first part of the chicane.
Yeah, first part of the chicane there was far too narrow on the entry. Even I could see that, and I'm not driving. So yeah, I don't know quite how he's not picked that up in practice, and how he's just made that mistake so early on when there was almost no pressure on him at the front of this race. Now we really do have a race on our hands, though. Mathieu Fortin is going to be dispatched off in towards turn 1. He'll brake very late, Will Ream, and he'll hold on through turn 2. But this is going to be a big test of his bottle now, Justin Ream. How far can he get back through this field?
Yeah, I mean, he has got it really all to do here at this point as we take a look on board. This is that second slowdown penalty, and there it is once again on the first part of the chicane. Ream just appearing to be a little bit too aggressive on turn into the corner. You've got to hope here that he's going to be able to pull back. And I've got to say, it's a little bit interesting. Ream is a Canadian driver. This is one of his home circuits. I've talked to Justin a couple of times. He loves this circuit. Could this be a little bit a case of nerves getting to the geodesic driver?
I think the second one is certainly excusable, that one there, with the inside line as he was trying to make the overtake, just to force to clip across the curb and get that slowdown. But the first one really is such an unforced error. And as you say, for such an experienced driver around a circuit like this, I mean, it doesn't mean you're immune from mistakes, of course, just being on home turf. But even so, you would expect maybe a little bit better from someone of his caliber who's done so much driving in this GT4 and is so experienced. You know, you wouldn't expect it, but there you go. It's one of those things. Sometimes things happen that we just don't expect, and that is certainly one of them. It's made a very interesting race for us now, though, because we get to watch him try and come back through the field. Oh no!
And that is, I believe, Miles Brown in the 222 that just gets it wrong going down into the final chicane. He's going to get an additional slowdown penalty, as we know, from cutting that corner. But my goodness gracious, talk about an action-packed couple starts of this race. As there we are going to take a look at the replay.
No, okay. I thought it was Miles Brown and Ryan Miles there. I was about to laugh, but no, not quite. Yes, just unfortunate turn the wall, but I think that the BMW on that occasion just coming across too early.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. It looked like a little bit of side-to-side contact, as right now Ryan Miles tries to be able to fight his way around Matthew Fortin in front of him. Ridgeway Ream up to 10th. We'll keep you abreast of his progress through the field. Beckham J. Sear, gotta be said, doing exactly what he needs to do here at this point. Ream is his title rival. He needs to win this race to try to maximize those points.
He really does, and the problem for Ream is the fact that he didn't start the opening round of the season back at the Charlotte Roval, so he has no safety net to fall back on in terms of the drop rounds. He's got to just take any score that he gets here. He's in 10th right now. He can't get rid of this score because he's currently dropping a 0. Beckham Jasir, for example, is currently dropping the Red Bull Ring round from last week. No, that wasn't even a terrible round for him. He still scored 44 points, so he's got a big safety net. So that's kind of a big difference between the two, I can see. And now it's very much damage limitation for Justin Ream, as this battle between the two of them, I'm sure, is going to get very interesting as this season goes on.
Yeah, it's going to be one that goes down to the wire, I think, as we watch Ream there trying to make a move down to the inside of Nicholas Belmont. Looks like that was pretty easy. I think Belmont may have read the writing on the wall. Oh, but Ream blows the corner down into the Senna S. He finds himself off and into the grass, as if this race couldn't go any worse for Justin Ream.
It really couldn't go any worse for him. He dropped back to 12th, and he's got to slow down for this as well. Oh, it's such a disaster for Ream. He's almost having to stop on the apex here in front of Vincent Genereux there. And now he'll get going back up to speed. David Van Rooij here is not going too quickly, and Ream's going to go immediately down. No, he's not. He'll stay behind, but what a disaster. Down towards turn 1. He's late on the brakes, and it's another avoidable one, really. And to be honest, he could have maybe even made a bit more of an effort to make the corner here. Let's see if I change my mind here by watching the onboard. I think he could have made that, you know.
Yeah, it looked like he tried to be able to gather the car back up under and put a little bit of counter steer into it, and I think he just kind of gave up a little bit on it. But we'll have to see how he's able to recover here at this point, as we've got a nice little battle on our screen as the 410 of Matthew 410 finds himself in a little bit of a sandwich. There's Ream charging back up through the field. Now that's going to be a move on David Van Rooij. And I've got to be a little bit worried here at this point. If I am a fan of Justin Ream, I've got to be worried that the red mist is going to start to come down and that Ream is going to be driving here with a little bit more anger, with a little bit more tenacity, and less of that calm, coolly determination that we have come to expect from him.
Well, maybe a bit more anger within him might do him some good here, because so far nothing has been going right for him in this race. He's had 3 slowdown penalties now, and he's dropped from pole to 14th. So not much could go worse for him right now, and I don't think anything is going to make that any worse or any better at this stage. He's just got to pick himself up and to do his thing normally, but it's going to be so difficult in the traffic here. He's already been marred in this battle for 10th place, which is really kicking off. Robert Ridgeway has got a 3-second gap in front of him to Belmont, for example, so Ream is already in danger of resigning himself to, at best, a 10th place.
Oh, that is not what he wants to hear at this point, as Ridgeway leads this battle in the number 77 Porsche right now. Behind him for 10, Miles, May, and Ream in an... Whoa, that's Ryan Miles almost getting it wrong. Excuse me, Alex May almost getting it wrong. Very nice bit of car control to be able to gain onto him. And what I was going to say there, Ewan, is in some ways, this kind of pack may be helpful to Justin Ream. Obviously, he's not going to be able to be running in clean air and be putting hot laps down, but it's not like he's going to have to really work and hustle to gain up to the cars in front of him. They're all there, and they're all ripe for the picking.
Well, it's good for the short term, definitely, but long term, this is not good news because this fight is going to go on and they're going to continue to lose time to those out front. And that means that when he does finally make his way through, if he finally makes his way through, he's got a lot of work to do to catch the likes of Lawrence and Belmont, who are currently fighting for 8th place. So this is, in my opinion, I'm not viewing this as great news in the long term because there is still half an hour to go. He's got to still think long term in this race and see how far he can get up the order. He can't think that this is the end goal here, 10th place. He's got to continue on, but it looks like this lap's going to go to waste, and he's not going to overtake anyone apart from, of course, Alex May, who had that huge moment off of turn 7.
Yeah, as there they go down. I thought for a second that Ream was going to have a little bit of a look there on Ryan Miles up ahead of him, but that wasn't going to be the case. Behind him here at this point, that's Alex May and David Van Roy. You know, David was a staple in the MX5 series for a long, long time, had some great results there. It just seems like he's been able to get up to speed here in these GT4s, but bad luck has just come his way every time. He's been a solid mid to high pack driver, and it seems like every time he's due for a good result, that Mercedes finds itself turned the wrong way around through no mistake of David Van Roy's.
Might be a bit disappointed that the MX5 and GT4 series are on the same night, really, because he might like to drive both, but there we are. It's the way it goes. You can't drive 2 series in one night in the PRL, but as far as I'm aware, that certainly was the case in the GT3 series a couple of seasons ago. So I'm guessing it's still the same. Yeah, doing a decent job. 15th place right now, as down the inside goes Justin Ream. And that will be 12th place, ahead of Ryan Miles, who sends himself very wide.
Yeah, Miles, I think, getting out of the way there a little bit in that black and lime green Mercedes. Now up ahead of him, it's going to be the number 410 of Matthew 410 to see if he's going to be able to close that down a little bit as everybody blasts their way down the casino straight. I always love these camera angles of seeing them be able to work their way down here. And I will also tell you that it's one of the coolest things in the world to see cars firing off down that straightaway. I've had the chance to be at this racetrack twice in my life, and it is an experience I will never, ever forget. There we watch Ream just continuing to go and continuing to try to fight here as we've got about 13 minutes down in this race. Let's give a little bit of love farther up in the field. Joshua Chinsky in a nice little battle here with Nicholas Rice-Saputo, the 2 McLarens that you see. Chinsky in that black and red number 18, Rice-Saputo right up ahead of him, the gap only about 0.5 of a second.
Yeah, Rice-Saputo and Belmont only separated by 3 points in the standings at the moment, but Rice-Saputo will currently double that advantage as they run right now. They really need to stop beating Jasir and Ream, though, in these races, really. They're doing half of that right now, of course, but they need to stop beating Jasir and start closing that margin on the championship leader as well. So, while this is all well and good inside the top 5, it does look like it's going to be a 2-horse race in the points. But further up here, yeah, there's really not much battling going on, unfortunately. This is normally the region where we see loads of fighting, but we're really not, unfortunately, in the opening moments of this one. It's a shame.
Yeah, it certainly is. We're used to seeing that very close pack and a lot of fuel saving going on. And I would have thought fuel saving would have been a pretty substantial thing here today. There's some pretty heavy braking zones that you're able to do some good lifting and coasting in. And then you're also able to sort of lift off on some of these straightaways, particularly down the long casino straight to save a little bit of fuel. But with as far out as these drivers up in front are running, it doesn't necessarily look like all that much fuel saving as we would traditionally think about it in the drafting way is coming into play. By the way, Justin Ream able to make up 1 position there, getting by Matthew 410 on a pretty nice move, going down into that final chicane. Able to get by that green and black Mercedes, and now he's got, well, the lime green and black Porsche of Robert Ridgway up in front of him. That's going to be the battle for P10. Ream just continuing to try to claw his way back up in this field.
Yeah, he's making progress, 11th place now, and they have actually caught Belmont and Lawrence, interestingly, despite being in this battle, so that is good news for Ream, but now there's an even bigger task, if and when he gets to the front of this group, to get back up to 7th place of Jake Haskell. That's an even bigger margin now. of about 3 seconds, so it will cross that bridge when we come to it. But Ream very close to the back of Robert Ridgway, using the straight line speed of that McLaren to close in, and the Porsche goes wide. He'll go round the outside through the second part down at turn 9. This could be interesting as we go 3 wide.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever seen 3 wide workout coming down into the hairpin, and indeed that is going to be Fortin backing out of it. Looks like Ream's going to be able to have the advantage there over Robert Ridgway, but Fortin and Ridgway going to continue to duke it out. They're going to be in a straight drag race here as they work their way down the casino straight. Ream checks out off into the distance though. His next target will be Austin Lawrence, but here's the side-by-side between the two. Also holding in behind there is Ryan Miles in that Mercedes. Let's see how this plays itself out. You've got to sort yourself out before you get into the braking zone for the final chicane, and it looks like Ridgway's just barely going to be able to hold on to it.
Oh, Fortin's line was no good through there at all because of the battle, so Ryan Miles was compromised, and Alex May will be able to get through, maybe on 1, maybe on 2, in towards turn 1. I don't think it will be 2, it will settle for 1 though. Through that final corner there. Normally though, when you see 2 battling side by side behind you like that, like Ream saw there in his rearview mirror, you start weaving around a little bit and start, dishing out slipstream to who you want to win. But Ream was so unmoved, he had no intention of being back with them ever again in this race, was so unmoved by that completely, that he just kept on driving his line, and he's completely eyes forward. I think it says a lot about his mindset in this race. He's not worried about those behind him at all. He's completely eyes forward, completely trying to get back to where he will feel he belongs and as far up the order as he can possibly manage.
Yeah, it's a very, very impressive mindset there from Justin Ream, and not an easy thing to do. We often talk about how difficult it is to be keeping your eyes focused ahead when you've got somebody in your rearview mirror moving this way and that way and clogging it up. Well, imagine if you've got 2, 3 cars doing that in a little bit of a battle. But Ridgway here trying to hold on to the coattails of Justin Ream, and I've got to say that can be a pretty good strategy. I think maybe here if Ridgway is able to just kind of hold on and maybe see if he can pick up a few positions as Ream works his way through the field, that could help him out and maybe secure him a steady top 10 here.
Yeah, it could very much help out, and following the lines of someone who is a little bit quicker than you can be helpful, but then again there is always that barrier that does prevent you from doing quite what you intend. He didn't seem to get over those curves at the final turn there quite as maybe well as he should have done either, and will lose a bit of time. Gap will go up to 1.4 seconds or so, but not a bad run at the moment for Ridgway. As we go a bit further back to Jerome Bourdieu and Roy Brown, who's just in front of us right now in this battle for 19th.
And Jerome having a little bit of a fade there. Jerome, obviously the series organizer here, one of the administrators in the Precision Racing League, and so always great to be able to see those drivers not only out on track, but working very, very litigiously behind the scenes to set all of this up. As Jerome trying to have a little bit of a look there on the Team Beef driver going down into the first chicane, but he's not going to be able to do it. Ooh, looks like he got a little bit squirrely there coming through the second part of it. That's going to compromise his line, and I don't think he's really going to have a chance to be able to send anything here into the second chicane. That's a pretty difficult area to overtake to begin with. If I were Bourdieu here, I would definitely be trying to see if I can get a better run right about here. Here he goes, the 217 working down to the inside of the 133. They're going to be in a straight drag race as they go down into the third chicanes. Let's see if Jerome is going to be able to outbrake that 183 machine. No, he's not. Good defense there.
Very close as well, because when you're on the inside like Bourdieu was there, you can really find yourself slamming into the side of the car in front as you're trying to outbrake them. Now he'll go for it at the more conventional hairpin. Roy Brown was very late on the brakes on the outside line there, and he'll rip around, but he won't have the greatest exit. Bourdieu now going to have the slipstream as well, and in the McLaren he should be able to at least challenge the slower Aston Martin just up in front. He's only getting a distant tow here is Roy Brown. If for one at all. This is Justin Wren, by the way, getting us another slowdown penalty as far as I'm... Oh no, it wasn't a slowdown, sorry. It was just an honest mistake on this occasion, but it still cost him some time.
Yeah, I tried to send a move down to the inside there of Austin Lawrence to make that work, and it just didn't play itself out. We've got our first takers on pit road, though. Matthew Fortin and David Van Roy both look like they're coming on in. Roy Brown as well also in for Team Beef, so clearly some drivers opting to split this race in exactly 2. A 40-minute race. We're at about the 20-minute mark here. But we haven't given a lot of attention up to the front of the field with Beckham J. Sear and the fiercely forward driver. He's doing, we said this at the beginning, Ewan, exactly what he needs to do. He doesn't need to be driving too crazy here, doesn't need to try to set the world on fire, just needs to get maximum points over Justin Ream.
He's already done that 3 times this season, and they wouldn't mind doing it a 4th. I think, yeah, he'll be a little bit worried, of course, by the pace that Ream's shown in qualifying, and that may be a bad omen for him going forward in the remaining races, but taking maximum points on him while you can really keeps things in your control. And Jasir, with that lowest score currently at 44, means that Ream really has a lot of work to do to catch him up, especially because of the race he's having here. So all he's got to do now, Jasir, hit his marks and take this one from here to the end. It's the onus is on Ream to make the difference here in this race.
Yeah, it certainly is. Here's that other battle that we followed a little bit earlier in the race, continuing to just sort of sit and percolate here. Nicholas RaceSpotTV closing in behind Michael Terrafino for Team Beef. As, Ream has had another mistake coming down into the final chicane. He's going to bring the car into pit lane. My goodness. And I think that is also another one of the McLarens getting it wrong. This is just a race of attrition. I thought Alton Park was going to be the ones where we saw a lot of drivers get it wrong. Let's watch here exactly what happened to Ream. Did he misjudge? Misjudged it.
Oh dear, it's really, I'm so surprised the amount of errors he's made here in this race. Here it is. He's going to the pit lane. Austin Lawrence in front of him is not, and he slams into the back of him. This is, you know, I'm absolutely amazed that a driver with such experience, first of all around this circuit, to know that that pit entry is going to be a problem, but also of his experience just of iRacing, of sim racing in general. How is someone of his experience making this many mistakes during one 20-minute period? It's so baffling. There must be some other kind of reason for this, because I've never seen Justin Ream make this many mistakes in my life, never mind in a 20-minute period.
Nor have I. Ream is one of the calmest, coolest, and most collected drivers that we normally see on the sim. Just out of character here for him today. We'll let you know if he's able to regain some positions here, maybe with that slightly early pit stop, be able to move his way back forward, but we're going to check in here as that is RaceSpotTV and Terrafino both calling down into pit lane here. So a lot of drivers opting to take what I would argue is a little bit of an early pit stop from what we're used to seeing in this series.
Yeah, we are normally used to seeing them go a little bit further. I was sure, by the way, that Terrafino was going to end up speeding there, or crashing, because he seemed to be going very fast, but he did slow it down in time. RaceSpotTV wasn't quite as committed on the way in, but yeah, we are seeing those pit stops already taking place, and already affecting the race as well. So you'd expect it from these guys to leave it out a little bit longer, but yeah, for whatever reason, even before the halfway mark, we saw the likes of Mathieu Fortin into the pit lane, but it did work out quite well for him, really. He's jumped to the likes of Ridgway and Ream and Van Roy, so it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, it worked out very, very well for him. As we watch Beckham J. Sear here, I'm looking at the lap times. Adam Brockway's doing a frankly spectacular job keeping close behind J. Sear. The gap's only about 2.2 seconds at this point, and Brockway was actually able to go faster by about 1/10 of a second on the last lap. So I wonder here if Brockway's maybe just laying in wait, maybe saving a little bit of fuel, trying to minimize that pit stop time and see if he can really put on a challenge here to that number 12 in the final maybe 12 minutes of this race.
I think it's going to be difficult for him. You've got to remember that that gap is you know, more than 2 seconds at this stage, and even with still a quarter of an hour to go, that's quite a big margin to close down. So we'll see, but I don't know if it's quite going to happen for him. Into the pit lane though, and we'll see what the pit stop times are first of all. That will tell us a little bit. If he's gained a little bit, then maybe it will be on here.
Yeah, maybe it will. Looks like the entire front half of the field here. J. Sear, Brockway, Gallo, and Chinsky all coming down into pit lane. Jake Haskell also pitting in from P5. There's Beckham J. Sear coming to rest in his pit stall. I think that's maybe a lapped car that's working their way on by. Let's keep an eye here. We don't anticipate any tire changes going on for any of these drivers. It's going to be fuel only as they run. Just waiting for them to be able to get their marks. nearly identical leaving time, so maybe my theory wasn't completely out of the woods. This is going to be a little bit of a race between Beckham J. Sear and Adam Brockway.
Well, Brockway has gained lots of time there, 9/10 of a second shorter in the box, and that is the difference. So Jasir now does have a bit of a battle on his hands, but then again, to counter that, Jasir was quite considerably faster than Brockway, and comfortably so, during the first half of the first stint of this race as well. So if that repeats, then Brockway probably is going to run out of time.
Yeah, we'll have to see what exactly happens. Here's that other battle that we were watching, Nicholas Belmont, Matthew Fortin, and Alex May now entering into this conversation. This is the battle for P8 right now. Belmont holding the banner for Porsche. That car, I'm not going to say it's the most maligned, as a couple seasons ago we saw a lot of drivers abandoning the Porsche jumping ship, as it were. We've seen a few more show up this time around, but again, those Mercedes and the McLaren seem to be the best cars here for the balance of performance, and it's really the Aston Martins that have been let by the wayside, but Belmont carrying the flag for Porsche and doing a very good job of putting up a stout defense here on Fortin and May.
He is for now, but line wasn't particularly ideal through 8 and 9, and he's going to be under pressure from Fortin into the hairpin now. Down the hill they'll go, and that will be not late enough on the brakes from Fortin. He'll try and do the cutback, but you've got to be always careful of that when there's someone behind you. Alex May will just slot into that gap, and they'll go side by side up the back straight.
All right, it's going to be a battle of the late breakers as they try to move their way down into that final chicane. And this is going to get a little bit interesting there, as Alex May is actually going to get a little bit of a benefit, or Matthew Fortin rather is going to get a little bit of a benefit off of Nicholas Belmont. But it looks like May is going to have the inside line. Is that going to be enough? Very close. That's a cut course penalty. That has got to be a cut course penalty there for Alex May.
Oh! And he didn't realise it was, and Fortin didn't realise in time. He was trying to grab the slipstream. He thought there was weaving around to try and break it, but in the end, it's just caused an incident, and Ream has come through all of them to the top 10 again.
Once you thought it was out, they pull you back in. Let's take another look at this. Yeah, you can see you called it exactly right. Ewan pulls off to the side to serve that slowdown, and I think there that he just thought he was trying to break the draft, didn't anticipate him slowing down to give back that time.
No, and we recognised it in real time there, and I know it's all different when you're driving and whatever, but I think if you're Fortin there, you have to realise that the car in front of you just jumped over those curves right in front of your eyes. You can't go chasing the slipstream just in case they do have a slowdown, and that kind of thing happens. So, unfortunately, that one may be on him. I'm not sure whether there will be any penalties dished out for that, to be fair, because it was a bit unlucky. And he's damaged himself as well, indeed. But yeah, I think if the car goes jumping over the curves like that right in front of your eyes, you do have to be wary of that.
Yeah, you've got to be very, very aware. As speaking of aware, Justin Ream recognizes a little bit of an advantage, and he's going to move on by Matthew Fortin there. Maybe a little bit of contact coming down through the hairpin, but he's going to be able to pull his way on, as now Fortin is going to try to tuck up right behind in that draft, see if he can steal anything away. There's the Porsche and the Mercedes there behind. That's Nicholas Belmont in the front of your screen. I don't think that Fortin is going to have the straight line speed, as we anticipate a little bit of damage on that Mercedes. That can definitely be hurting him in a straight line.
Yeah, if there's ever a circuit you don't want damage, then this is pretty high up on the list, but Justin Ream's McLaren will be pretty quick anyway. It's pretty difficult to get anywhere, even if you're in the slipstream with the McLaren, purely because you're not actually getting that much slipstream from that kind of body shape, but also it's very powerful as well, and will likely just speed away from you. So back into 9th place for Justin Ream. He's starting to find his feet in this race a little bit again, but I think he's going to find his limit at around 7th place, in which case he'll still be losing pretty significant points to this man right now. Still race leader, Beckham Jasir.
Yeah, Jasir holding on to the lead. That gap that we talked about not necessarily playing out nearly as much as I thought it was going to. It's about 1.2 seconds as they run. But here comes the big question, Ewan. They're about to come onto some lap traffic. Now, that's going to be all well and good if they're able to catch it going down the casino straight, maybe even onto the front straightaway. But if they catch those two cars through some of the twistier bits, that could slow down Jasir and blow this race wide open for Adam Brockway.
Very much could do, and they're in a fight as well. That's Glenn Vanko and Josh Kimball, who are fighting currently for 24th place in the field. Wasn't expecting to see traffic actually be a factor today, The circuit relatively long in the GT4s, and not particularly massive field tonight either. But maybe people aren't a fan of the circuit for whatever reason. But traffic shouldn't be too much of a factor, and this may well be the only time it does become a factor. It's almost a 50-50 chance between it closing up the leading battle, or indeed sealing the race win, really, for the race leader if it goes his way.
Yeah, it's all going to be down to how Beckham Jasir is able to navigate that. We also have a battle here for P3, Hugo Gallo, Michael Terrafino. Right now, Terrafino in that white and black cow livery, let's call it, for Team Beef, as he works his way around Hugo Gallo, hoping to be able to take a little bit of a bite out of Team Beef's advantage in the points right now as they work their way into the second braking zone, trying to be able to bring their way around here. The Mercedes and the McLaren, again, very evenly matched here. And I've got to say, Hugo Gallo has been sort of one of the unsung heroes of this season. He has really done a good job just putting in consistent and solid top 5, top 10 performances and never really balking at any of the racing that has come before him. He has just done a fantastic job when push has come to shove.
It's been a decent season for him so far, but it will be also very nice to see Michael Terrafino on the podium here today. Both of these two would deserve it, but they're going to fight it out between themselves in the final 9 minutes of this one. As the Team Beef cars, by the way, go backwards in the evolution of making of beef. Last season they had, or a couple of seasons ago in GT3s, they had cooked beef as it would arrive at barbecue, and they've gone backwards to quite some time before that to a cow. So there we are. Clearly not vegetarians, the two of them. But it's very nice livery, I've got to say, by the way. Very, very distinctive for us.
Yeah, it certainly makes our job easy. And by the way, you can see there, looks like Jasir and Brockway have been able to get around that lap traffic, but it has closed the gap up a little bit. It's down to 0.8 of a second. Let's call it 0.9 of a second in between Jasir and Brockway. So Brockway just trying to charge in behind here to see what he can do. The real question's going to be is if he is able to keep this close. And I think for Jasir, his big thing that he has got to worry about in that fiercely forward Mercedes is he wants to try to get that gap over 1 second, over 1.2 seconds. He does not want to give any sort of slipstream advantage to Adam Brockway. The flip of that being Brockway at all costs wants to be able to stay in that slipstream around the power parts of this circuit.
Yeah, as I said earlier on, I think Brockway really comes into his own during the second half of the stints. As the fuel load goes down, he seems to get a little bit stronger than Jasir does on the low fuel. So the fact that traffic has just narrowed them up slightly may well help just a little bit. There'll be one more bit of traffic before this race is done to negotiate if Corey Groves in the BMW. I've caught a glimpse of the orange car just up in front, but you can see the gap they have until the next lap car after that. It probably won't be a factor in the 7 minutes after, and they might only get to the BMW very late on here, so we'll see about that. But I think Brockway's got a great chance now. 3/4 of a second between the two of them. That traffic may well have just put him in the window to start challenging.
Yeah, it very well might. By the way, that's Corey Groves up ahead in the BMW, and that is one of the cars that hasn't seen all that much love here in the series, so going to be a little bit slower, and dare I say, it may be a little bit more difficult for Jasir and Brockway to sort of get a read on what that car is going to do. If you're coming up behind a McLaren, you're coming up against a Mercedes, or even a Porsche that are a little bit more populous in this series, you're going to know what the characteristics of that car are. Not having that many BMWs in the field, that could be another wild card that gets thrown into this. We will have to see. The gap still coming down just a little bit, about under 0.8 of a second here at this point, as it did look like Brockway was about 1/10 of a second faster on that last lap, and certainly closing down through the second chicane.
Yeah, he's doing well. This is Robert Ridgway, by the way. I think he's about to drop down a couple of places. He's down the inside of a Mercedes here, and oh, it's awkward. And it's 3 wide indeed off the chicane there. That's 4 tandem miles who will both get through. That was a nice, but and a pretty harsh slow. Was that a slow down for the Porsche? Maybe. He certainly lost the places.
Yeah, Yeah, certainly did, and I think I definitely think he did get a little bit of a slowdown there. Well given back, though, as there you can see Miles absolutely powering on by. Very impressive stuff. Excuse me, that was 410. Powering on by some very impressive stuff and some very good heads up. But that is one of the things that you see here in the sim when you're given those cut course penalties that ask you to give back the time. The sort of natural instinct is to lift off of that throttle as early as possible and give that time back up right away. But the more experienced drivers, they know how to kind of bleed that time over the allotted amount so that you're not losing it all in big chunks. Speaking of that, well, there they go on by. Corey as the number 71 dutifully gets out of the way, lets the leaders on past, and lets this battle continue to go on, although it is advantage Beckham J. Sear as he was able to go a little bit faster on that last lap.
It was just by less than a tenth of a second. There was really not a lot in it, but it was a gap. And so with 5 minutes to go and likely maybe 4 laps, they might be able to squeeze out this one. Brockway does need to start getting a move on, because not only is it about catching here, but also it's about being able to have the opportunity to pass as well. And it's not going to be so easy when you're up against someone of a very similar standard of you and you're in the same car.
Well, that's really one of the key things here is when you're running in the same car, that balance of performance, it's horses for courses, as we like to say. Some cars are going to have a little bit of better acceleration. Some cars are going to be better in a straight line. But altogether, they will make lap times similarly. And so that's how it all breaks down. But if you're, say, coming in a McLaren against a Mercedes, you know you're going to be faster in a straight line. When it's Mercedes versus Mercedes, it's all down to the driver, and that's going to make it all the more difficult here for Adam Brockway. And that's one of the reasons why we are so fiercely focused on this battle between Jasir and Brockway, because if Brockway's able to pull this off, it will have been a masterclass.
Certainly will. And we'll see if he can. Just under 4 minutes to go. I think they are going to squeeze 3 more laps out of this, although it's going to be so close, isn't it? Don't quote me on that. It's going to be really, really close as to how many laps we get out of the remainder of this race. But we'll see as we go along. By the way, if Jasir can hold on to this, he would extend a championship lead out to 12 points. As it stands right now, but Rehm does have the chance to maybe overtake one more car in the form of Jake Haskell for 7th.
We'll see if Rehm is able to do that. By the way, we do have a little bit more lap traffic that they're going to have to deal with. Ooh, is this little battle with 410 Miles and Ridgeway, is it going anywhere anytime soon? This is the battle for the final spot in the 10th place, as that's going to be Miles sending it in deep down through the final chicane. I think he may have cut that corner a little bit, at least from the camera angle that we saw, but it doesn't look like he's having to bleed any time, as 410's now going to be down to the inside of him. They're going to be side by side into the braking zone as they work down into the Senna S. It looks like it's going to be advantage 410 for the moment. Miles now has it back, and here comes Ridgeway trying to poke his nose up and get involved as well.
The two teammates working together on the inside of turn 1 there. Don't think intentionally particularly, but it did work out like that, although Ridgeway couldn't get down the inside for turn 3, and so they'll remain single file, with Vincent Genabru getting involved in this one as well, in the BMW, by the way. But it's a bit of fantastic battle. This fight for 10th has been very, very interesting so far. Even seeing 3 wide off the final corner not so many laps ago. But it's died down through the back half of the circuit. It will liven up again, I'd imagine, by the time they get onto the back straight, maybe even before that.
Yeah, I thought I saw a little bit of movement there from Ridgeway and 410 going down into the 3rd chicane, but that's not going to play. 410, though, keeping a very, very close gap behind Ryan Miles. Remember, this is the battle that has just been kind of firing off the entire race through, and the two teammates of Miles and Ridgeway, they may be in a little bit of communication here to try to get things together. As here they go right now. That is your leader, Brockway, falling behind a little bit, falling behind a lot. 2.5 seconds, the gap now. Ooh, I wonder if he's running into some fuel problems. No, we're hearing from our producer that was a slowdown penalty through the final corner.
Yeah, it's so harsh, isn't it? Goodness me, it's cost him 2.5 seconds there. But here it is. It's through the final chicane, and he's made a mistake as well. He's lost time there, to be fair, and he's going to have to lose even more. So that's a harsh one for Brockway, but that pretty much is the end of the leading battle now. But Rehm does indeed get up another place, so he'll gain another point. And so the gap between the two, Jasir and Rehm, should be 11 points heading into the next round if things stay as they are.
Well, it's going to be all on Justin Ream's shoulders to try to make that up as we head to the Indianapolis Road Course and to the Nürburgring. Let's give you a little bit of love here back to that battle for P10. Miles leads the way over 410. Ridgway and General trying to be able to hold in behind in that BMW, but it looks like he's just losing out a little bit through the twisty bits of this track. You can see a result of the aero wash there as 410 and Ridgway got really pushed out wide. They're trying to get a little bit of front grip onto the edge of that car. By the way, I am trying to keep an eye here on your leaders, and I do believe we will be coming to the white flag this time by.
We will. We'll have one more lap after this one to enjoy for Beckham Jasir. As long as he doesn't make any mistakes, he should be on his way to his 4th win of this season so far. It's been pretty much flawless. Other than the Red Bull Ring race, he's not finished off of the podium just yet, and so it's been very successful. And this race, just the same. Rima's had a pretty good season, apart from that DNS as well. So that's why they found themselves so close coming into today. Obviously, that has all changed as a result of this race.
Yeah, it certainly has, as the battle for P10 looks like it's calmed down here for the moment. 410 not really close enough to be able to send a move. Neither is Robert Ridgway behind in that Porsche. Miles is going to be able to hold on here for the moment as the white flag will fly for these drivers in P10. Ream able to cross over the line there in P9. There is him in that number 912. Just an absolute yo-yo of a day here. It looked like he was able to fight his way back, then he fell back down through the order. Oh, did he get another slowdown?
He's yo-yoed again in this. What is he? Whoa. He's had issues of some description there. Maybe a slowdown, but he didn't seem to oh dear, that was the sound.
That was Terrafino hitting the wall,
yes,
trying to push a little bit on Hugo Gallo, and a big ka-thunk there into that 3rd chicane.
Well, he doesn't need this car in a minute, does he? So he might as well use it up while he's got one. Into the final corner. He's throwing everything at this, but I don't think he's going to get his podium.
I don't think he is either. I think that straight line speed of Hugo Gallo is going to be enough to be able to put him at bay. But Beckham Jasir, 2 more corners to go as he comes down into the chicane for the final time, coming out of the line past the wall of champions. And Beckham Jasir doing exactly what he needs to do in the championship will take victory here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
And pretty dominant in the end. It will look dominant on the result sheet anyway, but it was not quite so simple as we saw it throughout the race. It's going to be a very interesting fight to the line, by the way. The final spot inside the top 10 up for grabs.
Yeah, and Ryan Miles made a little bit of a mistake on that last lap. That's what really set this up, is there UC410 weaving back and forth. Miles down to the inside, now comes back to the normal racing line as they break down for the final chicane. Looked like they're behind. The General was going to try to send a little bit of a move on Robert Ridgway. That wasn't going to play out, as now it's going to be a straight drag race here between Miles and 410. I think Miles has got the advantage, and yes, he does. He will be able to hold on to P10.
And when 410 has the damage that we saw him pick up earlier on in the race to contend with, it's not too much of a surprise. Walker Caton able to recover to 16th place, by the way, after spinning on lap 1, and it was 10 seconds off the back of the field at the end of that as well. So hats off to him for getting up the order in the way that he did.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. I mean, that was some damage on the front of that McLaren as well. So for Caton to be able to move his way back up into 16th, certainly not the day that he would like, but still a good result for him on the whole, I would have to say. The story here, though, continues to be up at the top of the charts. I see a lot of M's, McLarens and Mercedes all up in the top, with the exception of Nicholas Belmont there in P8. Looks like we've got a driver eking across the line there. I was wondering if we were going to run into any problems with fuel, and indeed we did. As there we take a look at our final finishing order. Jasir from Brockway able to take that 5-second gap. It doesn't really tell the whole tale of the tape here. Hugo Gallo, though, able to hold off Michael Terrafino, and we saw just how hard Terrafino was pushing at the end. Nicholas Riceputo, he had a little bit of a quiet race, but able to come home in P5. Then it was Joshua Chinsky, Jake Haskell, Nicholas Belmont in the lone Porsche up in the top 10, and Justin Ream finally able to recover into a P9 position. Then it was Ryan Miles that rounds out your top 10. He was the victor of that big battle that we saw throughout the race between 410, Ridgeway, and Jenner, who joined at the end. David Richards came home in 14th. A great result here for Jerome Berthome to be able to come home in 15th. Remember, he started well down the order, so a good rise there for Jerome. Walker Caton, we talked about the Walking Pace Racing driver and his recovery up through the field to finish 16th. David Van Roy, looks like he finally had a quiet race and was able to come home in 17th. Then it was Austin Lawrence and Miles Brown, followed by Roy Brown, who rounds out your top 20. Looking back down to 21st position, it was Ryan Reeves, and then Alex May, the last driver to finish on the lead lap. Corey Groves, Josh Kimball, Glenn Vanko, 2 laps down. Brian Hoskins, 3 laps down, but finished on the day. And that's going to bring us right on into our podium interviews. And first and foremost, Beckham J. Sear. Beckham, I want to start at the near end of the race there. How worried were you about Adam Brockway starting to close in behind you before he got that slowdown?
I mean, I wasn't really too worried because, I know he had the draft, so I was just focusing ahead of me and just hitting all the best apexes I can, and I just saw he had the slowdown, so I just drove it nice and cautious home.
Well, you certainly were able to do that, and how aware were you of some of the trials and tribulations that your championship rival Justin Ream was having out there today?
Yeah, my spotter, big credit to Aiden Young. He was letting me know about all the chaos that was happening, and what he was telling me was crazy. So it was a really good race for me to extend the points here in the championship.
Is that what the focus is going to be on going through the rest of the season, just trying to maximize those points, or are you going for win after win?
Now that we're going towards the end of the season, probably focus more on points instead of wins, but I'm confident that I could get top 5s.
Well, I know I'm very much looking forward to seeing how you're going to be able to do, Beckham, and congratulations on a great race here today. We'll see you at Indy.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that was your victor here tonight, Beckham J. Sear, and now I believe you've been able to catch up with P2, Adam Brockway.
I have, Adam. Welcome to the booth as well. Good to have you here. It was close until fairly late on in that one. Just tell us a little bit about that second stint and how you were just trying to catch Beckham just at the end there.
Oh yeah, man, I made some good time in the pit and was able to stay within about a second of him, but he's fast. I was trying to keep up, and then I clobbered the curb on the last chicane and got to slow down, so just trying to stay ahead of Hugo to maintain P2.
And that was a story of a number of people's races, to be fair, slowdowns. How much is it on your mind as a driver when you're going around here? They are quite vicious from what I can see, but how much is it at the forefront of your mind when you're actually in a race?
I mean, I was definitely thinking about it most of the time. I was, I had a lot of slowdowns in practice, clobbered the wall a lot in practice, so, my mind was just trying to put in some good laps, but stay safe.
Absolutely. Adam, congratulations on second place here tonight, and thanks very much for chatting to us.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks very much. Adam Brockway, second place here tonight.
All right, and that's going to lead us into an interview with the Radicals Online 465 Garage, driver of the number 23, Hugo Gallo. Hugo, talk to me about withstanding that pressure from Michael Terrafino for pretty much the entirety of the race.
Yeah, it was quite intense. You could say my race was uneventful, but not boring. Trying to stay ahead of Terrafino. He really cut the gap in the pits. I'm not sure. I think I overfueled, but when we came out of pits, he was really close, so I had to make sure not to get a slowdown to stay ahead of him.
Well, how much were those slowdowns playing on your mind? We just talked to Adam Brockway, who picked up one or two over the course of the race, and we had a lot of drivers catching him out. Was that something that you kind of always have to be thinking about, or do you just trust your instincts?
A little bit of both. During practice and the races I did, practicing for this event, I got a few of them. But if you're gonna be fast, you gotta cut those curves as much as possible. So I think it's a little bit of, if you overthink it, you're gonna be slow, but you also don't want to overdo it, right? So I don't know. I guess you gotta be careful, but not overthink it.
Well, that certainly seems like a pretty good way to think about it. I got to ask you, though, Indy Road Course next time out on the new layout, obviously a little bit faster, a little bit better for overtaking. How do you like the 23's chances there?
I haven't raced that track that much, to be honest, so I think we've had good pace during the season so far. So hopefully we can do well. Our team, credit to Max Tillinev, he always gets a good setup for us. So yeah, I think we'll do well.
All right, well, we wish you all the luck in the world when you get there, Hugo, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
All right, that was your third place finisher, Hugo Gallo, here, and there we get our final parting shots of this beautiful Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve, which really put on just an absolutely spectacular show for us here, Ewan. Really met my expectations, and believe me, they were high.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy racing and races around Montreal. It's always fantastic. That mix of street and real racetrack kind of vibe is, yeah, very much to my liking, I've got to say. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, very different challenge, and one that I don't enjoy driving myself, but, and I'm sorry to say that to anyone listening, but it will be an interesting one to watch nevertheless. Yeah, it'll be, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens indeed. Obviously a place that is very near and dear to my Hoosier heart as we look at the rest of the schedule there. The Nürburgring, Magny-Cours, and Laguna Seca. We're going to be coming into a couple of tracks here at the end of the season that are going to be very important to get a good qualifying run down. And so that's going to play a lot here, I think, for these drivers. But as we get ready to say goodbye to Montreal and head back over the U.S. border to Indianapolis, it has been just an absolute pleasure to bring you all of the racing action here today. My name is DJ Clark. I have been joined in the booth by Ewan O'Leary with our impeccable director and producer Arjuna Kankapati working behind the scenes. And we look forward to being able to see you next time out as we head off to Suzuka West and the Indianapolis Road Course. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.